Chapter 225. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. Xiao Sanzi stopped the carriage in front of the alley, as he was told. This was a very secluded alley, and there was almost no one walking around. The carriage also stopped. Xiao Sanzi suddenly felt gloomy, as if something big was about to happen. He said in fear, "Hey, Miss Gu. Miss Gu, are we really going to stop here? Why don't we hurry back to the medical hall?" Gu Jiao said, "There's no rush." She wasn't in a hurry, but she hated wasting time on such meaningless things. Gu Jiao closed the medical book she was reading halfway and opened the curtain to get off the carriage. Xiao Sanzi saw that she was going to walk towards the carriage and couldn't help but be stunned. "Miss Gu, what are you doing?" Gu Jiao didn't even turn her head as she said, "Wait in the carriage." Xiao Sanzi. Oh. When Gu Jiao walked over, the coachman didn't know if he was scared or what, but he actually abandoned the carriage and ran away. Gu Jiao reached her hand into the curtain and was about to pull the person out, but that person took the initiative to hand over his wrist and obediently got out of the carriage. Gu Jiao had never seen someone who was so self-aware of being picked on. She went to grab the collar of the person, but the person grabbed the wrist instead, even though the other party took the initiative to hand it over. "It's you." Looking at the handsome young man who was pulled down by her, Gu Jiao frowned. Royal Prince smiled and nodded. "Yes, it's me." His white clothes were like jade, and his black hair was like satin. He had an outstanding appearance and was handsome. Strangers were like jade, and the young master was unparalleled in this world. His facial features were not only bright and exquisite, but he also had an otherworldly temperament. However, Gu Jiao didn't have time to admire a certain person's beauty right now. She grabbed the wrong person once, and her husband was already angry. What would happen if she grabbed the wrong person again? Gu Jiao decisively let go of his hand and asked indifferently, "Are you following me?" Royal Prince shook his head and smiled. "Not at first. I went to offer incense, but I didn't expect to see you, so I followed you back." What did he mean by following her back? He spoke as if he wanted to go home with her. Gu Jiao's eyes fell on the coachman, who was not far away, who was looking at them. "You changed the carriage and coachman. You are not going to burn incense." Wu Yang had developed from a secret guard to an open guard. He had become the standard of Royal Prince, and when he went out, changing Wu Yang was to prevent others from discovering his identity. And what's so bad about burning incense? Unless he had other motives. Royal Prince laughed in disbelief. This woman was too smart. It was really hard to resist. Royal Prince did not explain his purpose to her. He only said, "But I really didn't follow you. It was a coincidence that I met you. I swear." What does his vow have to do with her? Gu Jiao looked at him and said, "I don't like being followed. You can leave first." Royal Prince did not want to make her angry. He helplessly held his forehead and smiled apologetically. Okay. Don't be angry. I'll leave first. I won't do it again." Royal Prince got on the carriage. The coachman rolled back dejectedly and drove the carriage away. After making sure that he really left, Gu Jiao turned and walked to her own carriage. However, just as she lifted the curtain, a kitchen knife flew over her head. She pushed Xiao Sanzi away and pushed him off the carriage. The kitchen knife was firmly inserted into the outer seat of the car. Xiao Sanzi covered his painful butt. He was about to ask Miss Gu why she pushed him away when he saw the kitchen knife on the seat. He was instantly dumbfounded. Is someone trying to assassinate me?" Gu Jiao raised her head and looked at the roofs on both sides. She narrowed her eyes dangerously. She walked out of the alley and turned left into the first shop. It was a cosmetic shop. The first floor sold ordinary cosmetics, and there were many customers. The second floor was for VIPs, and there were only a few people. Gu Jiao quickly went up to the second floor and came to a room at the end of the right corridor. She broke the door, and without saying a word, she grabbed the only woman inside and threw her out of the window. Ah! The woman screamed and fell beside the carriage. Xiao Sanzi was so scared that he jumped 3 times and took a few steps back. He raised his head and looked at the window that was suddenly broken. Miss Gu. Gu Jiao jumped down from the 2nd floor window and landed beside the woman. She did not give the woman a chance to react and stepped on the woman's left wrist. With a clang, a dagger fell out of the woman's left sleeve. Gu Jiao broke the bones in her hand and stepped on her chest. She said coldly, "Speak. Who sent you?" The woman was not old. She was not even 20 years old. She looked weak, but she was a martial artist. Otherwise, she would not be fine after falling from the 2nd floor. Of course, she was now. The bones in her left hand were broken, and her ribs were showing signs of breaking as well. Gu Jiao looked down at her. "My patience is limited. You better tell me immediately." The woman gritted her teeth and did not speak. Very well. Gu Jiao moved her fingertips, and a blade slid between her fingers. There was no pity or hesitation in Gu Jiao's eyes. She was really going to end her. The woman was scared out of her wits. Just as she was about to speak, a shout came from the other end of the alley. "Who is it?" "Stop." It was the old marquis passing by. The old marquis walked down from the carriage and came to Gu Jiao and the woman. He had not paid attention to Gu Jiao when he was near the nunnery, so he did not recognize her as the little girl who had appeared beside Grand Concubine Jing. Gu Jiao, however, recognized him. It was the old man who had caused Grand Concubine Jing to lose her mind. "What are you doing?" the old marquis asked sternly. "How can a girl bully a woman on the street?" "No." Xiao Sanzi hurried to explain. "There's something wrong with her." "What's wrong with her?" The old marquis shot him a cold glare. Xiao Sanzi was just an ordinary manservant. How could he withstand the aura of an experienced veteran? He choked on the spot. Seeing that help had arrived, the woman cried out, "My lord, save me. Please save me. I didn't do anything." And she suddenly charged at me like this. I don't even know what I did to offend her. You took the knife. You threw the knife. You almost stabbed us to death." Even though Xiao Sanzi was a coward, he still mustered the last of his courage. No. If you don't believe me, look." Xiao Sanzi pointed at the kitchen knife on the carriage seat with trembling hands. The knife had sunk an inch into the carriage seat. If it had cut a person's head, it would have split it open. The old marquis's eyes darkened. The woman quickly said, "I didn't do it. I don't know anything. Master, you have to believe me. The authorities will investigate whether you did it or not." With that, the old marquis turned to Gu Jiao. "Even if you suspect her, you can't beat her up. You should hand her over to the authorities." Gu Jiao was annoyed and ignored the old marquis. "I'll give you one last chance. Are you going to tell me or not?" The woman was fearless. "I won't." Swish. Gu Jiao's knife flew past her cheek and cut off a lock of her hair. Cold sweat broke out on the woman's forehead. The old marquis was furious. How could this girl be so stubborn? The old marquis took a step forward. Gu Jiao said mildly, "Old man, I advise you to step aside." Old man? It was true that the old marquis was old, but he was still young. Who dared to humiliate him like this? Gu Jiao was annoyed that this guy interrupted her. Otherwise, she would have asked the person behind the scenes. As for handing her over to the authorities, how many people in the authorities could catch her if she had the guts to do such a thing? She would probably be taken away before she could be interrogated. Gu Jiao didn't want to fight with him because he was an old man. But she couldn't stop the old marquis from trying to stop her. "Pull her away," the old marquis ordered, and an accompanying guard rushed forward. Gu Jiao lifted her foot and kicked the dagger on the ground. The handle of the dagger hit the guard's chest, and he fell to the ground. The old marquis couldn't believe it and flew into a rage out of humiliation. He pulled out the whip from his waist and lashed at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao grabbed the woman on the ground to block the whip. Crack! The whip struck the woman's body. "Ah!" the woman screamed. The old marquis was so angry that smoke came out of his head. He found the right angle and lashed the whip again. Crack! The whip hit the woman again. This woman has gone crazy. Can't you be a little more accurate? Why do you always whip me? The woman had wronged the old Marquis. It wasn't that the old Marquis wasn't accurate enough, but that Gu Jiao was too cunning. The old Marquis simply grabbed the woman's arm and took her away from Gu Jiao. After putting the woman aside, the old Marquis' third whip hit Gu Jiao mercilessly. Gu Jiao dodged to the side and stuck to the wall like a small octopus. He thought that the whip would miss, but it didn't. The moment Gu Jiao dodged, a man in brocade walked into the alley. The old Marquis wanted to take back the whip, but it was too late. This man was none other than the famous Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping trembled. Shit. Marquis Xianping didn't expect that a whip would come out of the corner. He immediately dodged. But he forgot that the emperor was behind him. The emperor wasn't a martial artist. The emperor didn't expect that Marquis Xianping wouldn't protect him at such a critical moment. Instead, he dodged by himself. What kind of official was this? The whip landed on the emperor's head, and the emperor was stunned. Digression. Last few hours to clear the tickets. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/113339817. HTML Genius. Memorize this website's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 226. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. The emperor had a period of unbearable memories in his early years. His birth mother was a palace maid. Although she was raised by imperial concubine Jing, she wasn't much of a favored mistress. He and concubine Jing had a hard time. Later, concubine Jing gave birth to a little princess and was given the title of concubine Jing. Only then did the situation of the mother and children improve. But it didn't take long for him to be targeted by his brother, the crown prince, and the Lu family. He didn't want to join their camp and suffered terrible attacks. However, those attacks only made him lack food and clothing and suffer a little. No one would really hit him on the head with a whip. The old duke's whip was much more powerful than his son's. First, he was stronger. Second, he was more experienced. The whip was almost bone deep. Therefore, the emperor's stupor was not only caused by surprise, but his noble dragon skull was indeed numb from the slaps. It wasn't until some warm liquid flowed down his cheek that the emperor finally realized that he was hurt. Your Majesty. The old duke was so scared that he threw the whip away. He didn't expect that his whip would hit the emperor. Marquis Xianping's appearance was already shocking enough. When he couldn't take back the whip, Marquis Xianping dodged in time. He was secretly glad that he dodged. But now he might as well not have dodged. Marquis Xianping, why did you dodge? Have you forgotten that the emperor is behind you? Didn't you walk in front to open a path for the emperor? Did you walk into a latrine? The old duke was furious. He might not be human sometimes, but Marquis Xianping was a real dog. Marquis Xianping touched his nose and said shamelessly, "Oh, why is the old duke? Are you trying to assassinate His Majesty?" "Your Majesty, I came too late." "Emperor, I think you dodged too quickly." After a short period of numbness, the emperor felt a heart-wrenching pain. He couldn't stand up and slid to the ground, leaning against the wall. "Your Majesty." The old duke knelt down and bowed in fear and trepidation. "I am guilty. I didn't want to assassinate Your Majesty. I didn't know that the whip would hit Your Majesty." Actually, on the surface, the old marquis had already resigned from his position, so there was no need for him to consider himself a subject. But in reality, he was still working for the emperor. So in a moment of desperation, he didn't bother to call himself a commoner. Fortunately, Marquis Xianping was in the know, but the three of them were not the only ones present. Xiao Sanzi was completely dumbfounded. That woman took advantage of the chaos to escape. Gu Jiao, the little octopus, also came down from the wall. Xian Pingho narrowed his eyes. Wasn't this the quack doctor who stepped on his face and almost broke his back? Gu Jiao also narrowed her eyes. Hee. Wasn't this the miser who only gave her a copper coin after seeing the doctor? The air was filled with the smell of sparks. In fact, the emperor had also noticed Gu Jiao, but he did not want to make a mistake in front of Gu Jiao. He ignored the pain in his head and raised his sleeve to cover his wound. However, he couldn't stop the old Marquis from calling him Your Majesty. He even said that Your Majesty had lost a lot of blood and that I deserved to die. Then, Marquis Xianping dragged Gu Jiao over. Aren't you a doctor? Marquis Xianping. Although he dodged too quickly and caused the emperor to be hit, he invited the doctor over and made up for his mistake. Therefore, after the old Marquis and Marquis Xianping both caused the emperor to be injured, they both caused the emperor to lose his horse. The emperor's blood boiled. You two are really dogs. The emperor's face was covered in blood, but it was enough to recognize his face. Gu Jiao squatted down and said, Official Chu. What official Chu? This is His Majesty. The old Marquis didn't know that Qin Chuyu had hidden his identity to go to the Directorate of Education. Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows. Oh, so you are the emperor. So Chuyu is a prince. The emperor. Oh no, my son also lost his horse. The old Marquis. Why do I feel like something is wrong? Gu Jiao went to see concubine Jing today and happened to bring her medicine box. She asked Xiao Sanzi to fetch her medicine box from the carriage. Xiao Sanzi was so shocked that he couldn't speak. He quickly got into the carriage and handed the medicine box to Gu Jiao. The old Marquis didn't remember that he wanted to kidnap Gu Jiao and bring her to the officials. He said to the emperor, The ground is cold. Your Majesty, let's go to the carriage. The light is good here. Gu Jiao refused him. Before the old Marquis could say that he was talking to the emperor and that a little doctor shouldn't interrupt, Gu Jiao said to the emperor, Take your hand away. It was an order. The emperor obediently removed his hand from the wound, looking a little wronged. The old Marquis wondered if he was blind. You two are blocking the light, Gu Jiao said to the old Marquis and Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping was so shameless that he didn't get angry at being ordered around by a little doctor. He elegantly moved to the side. The old Marquis wasn't happy with Gu Jiao's tone. He felt that this little doctor was the one who abused the law and had no regard for anyone else. The emperor looked at the old Marquis coldly. Yes. The old Marquis also stepped back a few feet. Gu Jiao dipped a cotton ball in saline and began to clean the blood on the emperor's face and head. The emperor wasn't bad-looking, but he still paled in comparison to Marquis Xianping. But Marquis Xianping was so stingy, Gu Jiao decided that she wouldn't kowtow to him no matter how good-looking he was. Hiss, the whip wasn't light, and it tore open the emperor's flesh. The emperor was in so much pain that he twitched. The old Marquis knew that he was in the wrong, so he didn't dare to get up. Marquis Xianping also felt a little guilty. Forget it, the emperor was sitting, and he couldn't stand for the emperor to look up at him. So he came to the old Marquis' side. The old Marquis thought that he was going to kneel down and beg for forgiveness, so he kindly moved to the side to make some space for him. However, he saw Marquis Xianping squatting down and drawing circles on the ground out of boredom. The old Marquis was speechless. Gu Jiao looked at the wound on his head and said, You need stitches. I'll shave your head first and then give you some anesthetic. Shave my head? Stitches? The emperor didn't feel good. When Gu Jiao took out the blade, the emperor's body began to visibly become uneasy. When she took out an anesthetic needle, the emperor almost fainted. She pricked him with the needle. The emperor bit his sleeve. Wu Gujiao. This familiar voice and small action. The emperor completely lost his horse. Gujiao quietly finished stitching up the emperor's wound. She wrapped a bandage and gauze around the emperor's head. Pay attention to the hygiene of the wound. Come to the clinic tomorrow to change the dressing. After that, Gu Jiao packed up the small medicine box and medical supplies, and reached out to the emperor. The consultation fee. She said, why would the emperor bring money with him when he went out? In the past, he besieged the palace and used his own pocket. Unfortunately, he didn't bring eunuch Wei out today. The emperor turned his gaze to Marquis Xianping, who was squatting and drawing circles on the ground. He said coldly, Marquis Xianping, Your Majesty, you call me? Marquis Xianping was not embarrassed at all when he was caught drawing circles. He rarely felt embarrassed. In this regard, Gu Jiao and he were the same. Marquis Xianping stood up and walked to the emperor's side. He squatted down on one knee. This small action of squatting down was calm and elegant. This man, no matter what he did, was pleasing to the eye. Unfortunately, the emperor was not a dog that looked good. Give me the money. Marquis Xianping glanced at Gu Jiao. He helplessly took out his pouch and poured out a few ingots and silver coins in his palm. Unsurprisingly, he also picked out the smallest ingot and put it in Gu Jiao's palm. The emperor's eyes were cold to the freezing point. My body is only worth this little money? Marquis Xianping painfully picked out the second smallest ingot and put it in Gu Jiao's hand. He thought that he was going to give 2 ingots, but unexpectedly, he took back the smallest ingot. The emperor, Gu Jiao, the emperor was so angry that he directly grabbed all his money and gave it to Gu Jiao. After Gu Jiao received the consultation fee, she got into the carriage and left. The emperor didn't come back to his senses until the carriage was far away. He frowned and looked at the old marquis. Who did you want to hit with the whip just now? The old marquis told the emperor about Gu Jiao and the suspicious woman. I was going to send them to the authorities to make a decision. The emperor's face sank in an instant. It was more terrible than being whipped by the old marquis. How can you be partial to others? Others? That girl isn't one of us? The old marquis was very stubborn. Sometimes he didn't know how to be flexible, or maybe he didn't want to be flexible. He said seriously, I'm not being partial to anyone, but this kind of thing should be reported to the authorities. How can I let that girl do as she pleases? The emperor looked at the old marquis's expression and suddenly realized something. Don't tell me you still don't know that she is your granddaughter? Not only did the old marquis not recognize that she was his granddaughter, but Marquis Xianping also didn't recognize that Gu Jiao was his daughter-in-law. He was still thinking in his heart that he must be more generous when he saw his daughter-in-law in the future. He couldn't let his son lose face. Digression. Happy Double Day. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/113312323. HTML Genius. Remember the website address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 227. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. There was a reason why the emperor and Marquis Xianping left the palace incognito, so it wasn't strange for them to meet the old marquis. The 3 of them had already booked a place to secretly cause trouble. They just met in advance. The emperor and the 2 of them went to a nearby opera house. That's right, it was an opera house. Everyone knew that Marquis Xianping was dissolute and loved beauties. He often went in and out of this place, but no one knew that it was originally under his name. The three of them entered the side room, and the servant outside closed the door. The emperor had a wound on his head and was feeling very uncomfortable. After he sat down, he said impatiently, "Long story short, how is it?" The old marquis didn't dare to be negligent. He cupped his hands and bowed, replying to Your Majesty. Since the news of this official returning to the capital spread, this official's whereabouts have been followed. The Awang family? The emperor asked. Marquis Xianping grabbed a handful of melon seeds. The emperor glared at him. Sigh. Marquis Xianping didn't even let him eat the melon seeds. His Majesty was really angry. The old marquis nodded. That's right. This old official went to the temple today, and Royal Prince unsecretly followed me. The emperor frowned. He actually followed you himself? The old marquis didn't find it strange. This old official knows all of his guards. He could only take the risk himself. It wasn't easy to find Royal Prince in. The old marquis didn't notice him on the way there. It was only when Royal Prince got on the carriage a little earlier that the old marquis discovered him. As for why he panicked, the old marquis didn't know. When it came to business, the emperor's face became serious. What about the Empress Dowager's whereabouts? Do you have any clues? The old marquis guessed. This official thinks the Empress Dowager might have already entered the capital. The emperor frowned even more. Why do you say that? The old marquis said thoughtfully, although the Zhuang family is still pretending to look for the Empress Dowager, their search speed is much slower. Moreover, when Commander Prince left the capital, he appeared to be accompanying his sister on a sightseeing tour, but in reality, he was inquiring about the Empress Dowager along the way. After that, Royal Prince used the provincial examination as an excuse to return to the capital. Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but Royal Prince is still young. It's not worthwhile for him to give up searching for the Empress Dowager for an imperial examination. The emperor pondered for a moment and felt that the old marquis's words were not without reason. So you think that he returned to the capital because he found the Empress Dowager? But since she has been found, why don't you let the Empress Dowager return to the palace? When the Empress Dowager returned to the capital, she should be more afraid of the emperor's side. The Zhuang family held a heavenly card in their hands but didn't play it. What kind of trick was this? The old marquis pondered and said, This subject is also puzzled after much thought. Perhaps the Empress Dowager's leprosy hasn't been cured, so they are secretly treating the Empress Dowager? An Empress Dowager with leprosy would be despised and rejected by others. When Empress Dowager Zhuang contracted leprosy, they all thought that the opportunity to overthrow Empress Dowager Zhuang had come. But who would have thought that the Empress Dowager had escaped by herself? If they dared to say that Empress Dowager Zhuang had secretly left the palace, Imperial Tutor Zhuang would dare to question them in public whether or not they had plotted against Empress Dowager Zhuang. They didn't dare to win or lose, so they could only use a roundabout strategy. They claimed that the Empress Dowager had suddenly fallen ill and had gone to the temporary imperial residence to recuperate. Then they intentionally or unintentionally let the Zhuang family find out that Empress Dowager Zhuang had escaped with leprosy. The Zhuang family also feared that this illness would ruin the Empress Dowager's reputation, so they held back and secretly searched for the Empress Dowager. In a short period of time, the two sides had achieved a subtle balance. But this balance would be broken one day. If Imperial Tutor Zhuang really found the Empress Dowager and cured her, then the day when the balance between the two sides would be broken would not be far. The journey from the medical center to the nunnery was not short. On the road, they were delayed for a while. By the time Gu Jiao returned to Bishui Alley, it was already dusk. On the horizon, a gorgeous sunset glow fell on the red walls and green tiles, giving off a warm orange glow. When Gu Jiao walked into the alley, she really felt that she was returning home. She had never experienced this feeling in her previous life. In her previous life, she lived with her parents for very few days. It was empty and cold, without the slightest warmth of home. The so-called home was just a place to live. But now, it seemed to have a new meaning. After a busy day, she longed to come back here and see the people in the residence. It wasn't that she never felt tired, but she was used to being tired. Anyway, no one would love her, so it was useless to be pretentious. Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong's voice interrupted Gu Jiao's thoughts. The little guy was sitting on the threshold waiting for her. In the morning he had fallen and cried, but now he ran towards her and threw himself into her arms. She wanted to pick him up, but he shook his head and said, "No, Jiao Jiao is very tired." He resisted the urge to hug her and held Gu Jiao's hand. "Does your leg still hurt?" Gu Jiao bent down to pull his trousers. Little Jing Kong shook his head and said, "It doesn't hurt anymore." In fact, it still hurt a little, but little Jing Kong acted like a spoiled child because he didn't want to burden Gu Jiao. "Sister." Gu Xiaoshun heard the movement at the door. She put down the woodwork she was doing and rushed out like a little monkey to help Gu Jiao get her small basket. "Give it to me." Gu Xiaoshun insisted on holding the small basket in her hand and carefully put her small medicine box in her east room. Gu Yan was originally working for little Jing Kong in the courtyard to remove chicken poop. He was fuming with anger because he was not as free as little Jing Kong, and he was not as fast as Gu Xiaoshun. When he finally saw his sister, his beautiful face was completely dark. Gu Jiao was amused by his expression. Gu Yan turned his back awkwardly. Gu Jiao went to pacify him. It was hard for others to pacify him, but wasn't it easy for Gu Jiao to pacify him? Gu Jiao tugged at his hand, and all his anger disappeared. Yao Shi came out of the kitchen with a plate of freshly cooked steam cakes. When she saw her daughter, her eyes were full of gentleness. "Jiao Jiao, you're back. I just made some snacks." "Jing Kong, go and see if Grandaunt is awake." "Okay." Little Jing Kong loved to go to Grandaunt's room to check on her. He always found something and felt a great sense of accomplishment. Little Jing Kong ran to Old Madam's room while panting heavily. Old Madam was holding a jar of candied fruit and eating it. Old Chancellor sat in front of her speechlessly and watched her eat for the entire afternoon. "Can you eat so much? How many years did the late emperor starve you?" "Great aunt." Little Jing Kong bounced over to her. Old Madam stuffed the jar of candied fruit into Old Chancellor's arms at lightning speed. Old Chancellor looked at the jar that suddenly appeared in his arms. "You held me here for the whole afternoon just for this moment?" Old Chancellor did not want to take the blame and immediately returned the jar to Old Madam. The moment little Jing Kong entered the room, he saw Old Chancellor extend the jar of candied fruit to Old Madam, and Old Madam crossed her arms with a firm expression of refusal. Old Madam snorted and said, "I already said that I won't eat it. Your threats and promises are useless." Old Chancellor: "So half a jar of candied fruit was eaten by a ghost? Can you have a bit of self-awareness as the demon empress that brings disaster to the country?" Old Chancellor sighed. It was no wonder Ahung was at ease bringing the demon empress with her. Based on Old Madam's current appearance, she really did not pose much of a threat. It was just that he had to suffer. Every day, if he was not being robbed, he would be the scapegoat. His later years were miserable. After Royal Prince unbid farewell to Gu Jiao, he first went to the medical hall and ordered a batch of golden sore medicine from the miracle hall. He had angered her today, so he took care of her business and coaxed her. After that, Imperial Prince unsat in a carriage and returned to the manor. Imperial tutor Zhuang was already waiting in the parlor. Because of the Empress Dowager's matter, Imperial tutor Zhuang had been quite worried, and he had aged quite a bit. "Grandfather." Imperial Prince entered the room and saluted. Imperial tutor Zhuang calmly glanced at him and said in a heavy tone, "Why did you return so late? Did you follow him for the entire day?" Imperial Prince unlowered his gaze. "No, I bought some things on the way back." Imperial tutor Zhuang closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He slowly exhaled. Were there any abnormalities in his movements? Imperial Prince replied. He went to take a look at the cable bridge that had just been repaired. He should be checking the quality of the cable bridge. The cable bridge was repaired by Marquis Gu. Apparently, Marquis Gu had been beaten quite badly by the old Marquis and was recuperating at home. For the old Marquis to check the cable bridge for him, it was reasonable. But the old Marquis was definitely not a simple general. He was a brave and smart old man. With every step he took, he would calculate what would happen 10 steps away. Imperial tutor Zhuang suspected that the old Marquis had beaten his son on purpose, so that he could use his son's work as an excuse to openly check out the area. After all, the Ministry of Works had too many things to do, covering every corner of the capital. No one would suspect the old Marquis if he appeared anywhere. Of course, that was someone else, not Imperial tutor Zhuang. Imperial tutor Zhuang furrowed his brows in suspicion. He only checked the cable bridge? He didn't do anything else? For example, who did he meet? What did he run into? He ran into Grand Concubine Jing and Gu Jiao. Imperial Prince N's hand, which was hidden under his wide sleeves, grabbed the hem of his clothes without leaving a trace. He walked around the temple and didn't meet anyone. Imperial tutor Zhuang stroked his beard and said in deep thought, "That's strange. Could it be that he really went to check the cable bridge?" Imperial Prince unlowered his eyes. He remained silent and didn't reply. For the first time in his life, he lied to his grandfather. Imperial Prince had always been obedient. When he was 8 years old, he was sent to the Chun state as a hostage. He didn't complain at all. Imperial tutor Zhuang didn't suspect that he was lying. Imperial tutor Zhuang waved his hand. "You can leave. Old Marquis Gu is very vigilant. You might have been discovered by him today. Don't go next time. I'll find someone else." "Yes." Imperial Prince bowed and walked out of the parlor. "Brother." When he passed by the Chuehua gate, Zhuang Yueshi suddenly walked out from behind the tree. Imperial Prince looked at her and then at the parlor. He asked, "Why are you here?" Zhuang Yueshi's beautiful eyes were all on him. "I'm waiting for brother. I'm tired. I'll go back to the yard first." Imperial Prince said in exhaustion. Then, he brushed past Zhuang Yueshi. Zhuang Yueshi's eyes followed him. She stepped forward and asked, "Brother, why didn't you tell the truth?" Imperial Prince paused and looked back at her vigilantly. Zhuang Yueshi felt wronged and confused. Brother clearly saw the old Marquis, and, "Shut up." Imperial Prince didn't stop Zhuang Yueshi. Zhuang Yueshi was stunned. Royal Prince was a handsome young man who was as gentle as jade. He had an innate gentleness and upbringing in him. He rarely spoke so harshly. "Did you follow me?" His eyes were cold. This Imperial Prince was no doubt unfamiliar. But in fact, this was the real him. He was the one who survived the countless schemes of the Qin state. "I didn't." Zhuang Yueshi was frightened by this Imperial Prince she shook her head hurriedly. "There's no class in the girls' school today. Meng Dai asked me to pray. If you don't believe me, you can ask her. She saw too. She didn't." Zhuang Meng Dai was an idiot. She only cared about praying and eating vegetarian food. "If you want to tell grandfather, then go." Imperial Prince said tiredly and left without looking back. Zhuang Yueshi's heart ached. She wouldn't tell grandfather. How could she bear to let grandfather punish brother? She just didn't understand why brother hid it. Was he afraid of bringing trouble to that woman? It was her. She made brother change. Brother started to lie to grandfather. He started to be fierce to her. He started to not be the brother he used to be. It was all that woman's fault. Zhuang Yueshi's fingers tightened bit by bit. The old Marquis was punished by the emperor. The emperor's punishment was quite severe. Although the old Marquis hit him unintentionally, he almost hit the little miracle doctor on purpose. It was because the emperor felt the pain of the whip that he could vividly imagine what would happen if it hit the little miracle doctor. Marquis Xianping was also punished. The old Marquis and Marquis Xianping were both generals. Whipping them was like tickling them. Thus, the emperor punished them to copy military books. Punishing generals to copy books was the same as punishing civil officials to be caned. Both were painful. The old Marquis knelt in the side hall of the throne room. Looking at the table full of military books and brushes, he felt a headache coming on. Marquis Xian Ping casually threw the brush on the table. Copy Gooden. Go find your son. Digression. Looking for a guaranteed monthly ticket. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896426/113308359. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 228. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are available here. As the old Marquis was in so much pain from copying military books that he wished he was dead, he saw Marquis Xian Ping stand up, wave his wide sleeves, and leisurely walk out. The old Marquis was speechless. Marquis Xian Ping walked out of the palace with familiarity. He called Chang Jing and sat on the carriage to the Imperial College. Because the court examination was approaching, the Imperial College had more classes. Xiao Lulang often left school when it was dark. This time was just right, not too early or too late. Marquis Xian Ping waited outside the Imperial College for 2 hours before Xiao Lulang arrived. The uniform of the Imperial College was white with blue borders. The sleeves were wide, and the sleeves, lapels, and waistline were all lined with indigo blue silk. The waist was tight, and it was restrained and courteous. It was elegant and handsome. As long as one was not ugly, one could wear this uniform well. However, among the sea of white-robed Imperial College students, there was a figure with a walking stick that was particularly eye-catching. He was tall, slender, and had a jade-like complexion. The myriad of lights behind him reflected the clean and pure color of the youth. However, the walking stick that he used to support himself with somewhat destroyed this beauty. Marquis Xian Ping's gaze fell on his lame leg, and his handsome brows furrowed. But it was only for an instant, and his expression was normal as he got off the carriage. His carriage did not stop in front of the Imperial College, but under the large tree to the side. Xiao Lulang walked and walked. Suddenly, a tall figure flashed out from behind the tree and blocked his path. He stopped and looked calmly at the other. The youth was already the height of a grown man. He was no longer looking up, but almost at the same level. However, his figure was much thinner. Marquis Xian Ping had practiced martial arts for many years, and his back was as strong as a bear's waist. Xiao Liulang's eyes did not have any warmth, surprise, or any other emotion. He just looked coldly, as if he was looking at a completely unrelated stranger. This gaze stung Marquis Xian Ping's eyes, but Marquis Xian Ping still revealed a smile. "Son, long time no see." Xiao Lulang looked away. "I said I am not your son." Marquis Xian Ping, "How is an illegitimate child not my son? Even if you are not Aheng, you are at least Lulang. You are my and Chen Yun's mother's child. Then you are my son." This fallacious argument was plainly written in his eyes. Xiao Lulang was not in the mood to deal with him. "I'm going back." Marquis Xian Ping continued to stop him. "Do me a favor." Xiao Lulang Marquis Xian Ping Marquis Xian Ping said with grievance, "I'm really unlucky today. I was tricked by a girl. She hid, so did I. In the end, I'm the only one being punished." These words came out of nowhere. Xiao Lulang did not understand, nor did he want to understand. Marquis Xian Ping sighed. "His Majesty punished me to copy military books. You know that I would rather be flogged and whipped than write. This is asking for my life." The image of Gu Jiao frantically practicing her handwriting flashed across Xiao Liulang's mind. Before Marquis Xianping could chase after his son, his mind had already wandered off. He continued to speak in an aggrieved manner. In the past, it was always you who helped me copy. This time, you should also help me copy. Old monkey doesn't have anyone to help him. Who asked his son to be so useless? My son is the best. Marquis Xianping's mouth was usually used to choke people. Normally, he wouldn't say anything nice. He was only like this because he wanted to coax his son. All of Marquis Xianping's self-restraint seemed to have been used on this youth. But the youth didn't appreciate it. Xiao Lulang raised his eyes and stared at him. His eyes were cold. How many times do I have to say it's okay? I am not your son. Your son was burned to death in the fire 4 years ago. He didn't dare to shout in the fire and waited in despair for someone to save him. In the end, he could only watch as he was swallowed by the sea of fire. He is dead. Xiao Ji, your son is dead. Xiao Ji, your son is dead. These words were like a sharp knife that suddenly stabbed into Marquis Xianping's heart. Xiao Lulang resolutely left. Marquis Xianping's body was trembling slightly. He raised his hand to cover his heart. Fuck. It really fucking hurts. Xiao Lulang returned to Jade Water Alley with a cold body. The moment he entered the room, he restrained the anger in his heart and walked into the courtyard. At this time, everyone in the family had gone to bed. As expected, there was still a lamp left for him in the central room. He walked in with light steps. Gu Jiao was lying on the square table in the central room and had fallen asleep. The light shone on her face and brows, making her look gentle. But it wasn't the same coldness as before. Her brows were slightly knitted, as if she wasn't feeling well in her sleep. Xiao Lulang hesitated for a moment. He raised his hand and gently touched her forehead. It wasn't hot. He took his hand back. His movements were already very light, but Gu Jiao still woke up. She looked at him in a daze. You're back? Xiao Lulang found that her complexion wasn't good. He paused and asked, Are you not feeling well? Gu Jiao listlessly yawned. It's nothing. Xiao Lulang looked at her tired face, and his heart slightly tightened. I've already eaten. You can go to sleep. You don't need to wait for me in the future. It's nothing. She curved her lips. I've already boiled the hot water. I'll boil it myself. You can go to sleep. Xiao Lulang urged her again in a tone that didn't allow her to refuse. Gu Jiao. Okay. She stood up listlessly, entered the room listlessly, and lay on the bed listlessly. She wasn't the kind of person who would moan for no reason. Even if she was sick, she would act as if nothing had happened, unless it was really uncomfortable. Xiao Lulang looked at her deeply through the crack of the door. He didn't say anything and turned to go to the kitchen. He didn't immediately get water to wash up. Instead, he found ginger and brown sugar cubes. In the past, life in the countryside was hard. They didn't even have a piece of brown sugar at home. They had to borrow it from the village. Now life at home was not difficult, but she seemed to never care about herself as much as she cared about them. Xiao Lulang boiled a bowl of thick brown sugar ginger tea and brought it to Gu Jiao's room. His cooking skills were not good, so the ginger tea was burnt. He gently pushed the door open and came to Gu Jiao's bed. He gently woke her up. Get up and drink something. Gu Jiao made a sound and struggled to open her sleepy little eyelids. She smelled brown sugar and ginger juice and a bit of burnt smell. She was stunned for 3 seconds. Can you sit up by yourself? Xiao Lulang asked. No. A certain someone who was about to sit up laid down again. Xiao Lulang put the brown sugar ginger tea on the stool beside the bed. He reached out his slender hand and gently helped her up from the quilt. The girl's body was delicate and soft. She had a seductive fragrance that made one's heart flutter. Gu Jiao sat at the head of the bed. She was already half awake. She looked at the brown sugar ginger tea that was picked up by him again, and her eyes became bright. Her husband had boiled brown sugar water for her. Her husband was so nice. How did her husband find out? Gu Jiao's period came at night. She rarely had menstrual pain. In her memory, it had only happened once when she had her first period in the countryside. After that, it had never happened again. Strictly speaking, it wasn't too painful today. It was just that she was sleepy, tired, and a little stuffy in her stomach. She was a special agent who could withstand 10 levels of pain. She didn't need to use anesthetics to remove bullets, but for some reason, she couldn't tolerate this kind of menstrual pain. Xiao Lulang handed the brown sugar ginger tea to her. "Can you drink it yourself?" Gu Jiao had just reached out her hand when she silently withdrew it. She said seriously, "I feel very weak." Xiao Lulang sighed helplessly. He sat down on the edge of the bed, picked up the spoon, and fed her spoonful by spoonful. Gu Jiao opened her mouth, gently bit the spoon, and slurped it. The bowl of brown sugar water was soon empty. "Is there more?" She smacked her lips as if she hadn't had enough. Xiao Lulang looked at her round little belly that even her pajamas couldn't hide and said, "You can't drink anymore." Gu Jiao's gaze fell on his hand that was holding the spoon to feed her. "Oh." Xiao Lulang took the water and let her drink 2 more mouthfuls. "Go to sleep." Gu Jiao lay down obediently. She lay on her side and looked at him, looking a little obedient. Xiao Lulang met her gaze that couldn't be ignored. "What's wrong? Do you still feel uncomfortable?" Chang Jiao said, "Where do you feel uncomfortable? You're someone who can take a bullet. Can't you bear this little bit of discomfort?" Chang Jiao said, but her stomach really did feel a little uncomfortable. In the end, Chang Jiao grabbed Chang Jiao and beat her until her fists were 5 centimeters long. She kicked her out. Gu Jiao looked at him blinking. "My stomach is a little uncomfortable." "Ah." Xiao Lulang was speechless. "Sleep for a while. You'll be fine tomorrow." It was better not to ask. "Let me massage you?" It was too intimate. Xiao Liulang's heart was in turmoil. He looked at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao was looking at him with a pair of innocent eyes. It was as if he was a heartless bastard if he didn't do it. Xiao Lulang didn't understand how he could read these things from her small eyes. In the end, he braced himself and sat down. "I'll give you a massage." "Okay." Gu Jiao nodded. Xiao Lulang reached out his bony hand and reached into her blanket. It was warm under the blanket. His fingertips could already feel her body temperature through her pajamas. Xiao Lulang hesitated for a moment. Then he placed his palm on her soft and cold stomach. This was the first time he had touched such a soft part of her in a sober state. His palm felt as if it was on fire. It was boiling hot. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/113282967. HTML Genius. Memorize the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 229. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. Gu Jiao wanted to admire a certain someone's handsome face, but his palm was pressed against her lower abdomen. She didn't feel any pain and quickly fell asleep. She breathed evenly through her nose. Xiao Lulang gently withdrew his hand and tucked her in. He extinguished the oil lamp and quietly walked out of the room. His fingertips were still warm and fragrant. He stared at his hand in a daze and suddenly realized that he had compromised a little too much. He closed his eyes. "Xiao Lulang. Oh, Xiao Lulang, what are you doing?" Gu Jiao slept so well that she woke up later than usual. Little Jing Kong had already finished his practice and had breakfast. He went to the Imperial College with Xiao Lulang for his morning class. Gu Jiao, Gu Yan, and Gu Shaoshun went out together. Have you taken your medicine? Gu Jiao asked Gu Yan. I have. Gu Yan said. Yao Shi's antidepressants could be stopped, but Gu Yan's anti-heart failure medicine had to be taken for life. As he grew up, the medicine's efficacy would gradually lose its effect, and he would have to undergo surgery to recover. Sister. Gu Yan waited for Gu Jiao at the door. Coming. Gu Jiao carried her small basket and went out. Gu Yan was very happy. Today, his sister was sending him to school. Gu Yan carried his school bag and looked no different from a normal person. His occasional running and jumping didn't affect him. His condition was under control. Gu Jiao looked at the innocent Gu Yan and suddenly realized that the bond between them was irrevocable. She could perceive the world through him. If he was happy, she would be happy. If he was sad, she would be sad. She couldn't lose him. She wanted to cure him. When they arrived at Qinghe Academy, Gu Jiao tidied Gu Yan's lapel and straightened Gu Xiaoshuan's crooked collar. Let's go in. The two of them bid farewell to Gu Jiao and entered Qinghe Academy with their bags of books. Gu Jiao went to the clinic. Today, there was a small incident at the clinic. Someone actually came to cause trouble and said that their clinic had killed his wife. That person even brought the corpse over. This was a rare occurrence. Many people were attracted and crowded around the outside of the clinic. Xiao Sanzi was evacuating the crowd outside. Gu Jiao walked over and asked him, "What happened?" Xiao Sanzi hurriedly said, "Ah, Miss Gu, you're finally here. Someone inside said that we killed his wife and her corpse. He wants us to pay for his wife's death with our lives." All the patients in the clinic had been scared away early in the morning. Those who wanted to see the doctor were all scared out of their wits. As he spoke, he used his hand to push through the crowd. Make way. Make way. Don't block the way. Unfortunately, there were too many onlookers, and no one paid any attention to Xiao Sanzi. Gu Jiao entered the clinic from the back door. The door of the lobby was blocked by a few workers to prevent the onlookers from rushing in. The second boss wasn't here today. Shopkeeper Wang was dealing with the medical disturbance. A door plank was placed in the middle of the lobby. On the door plank lay a corpse covered with a white cloth. The corpse's belly was bulging. This should be the patient that Xiao Sanzi mentioned. Beside the corpse, an old woman was kneeling. She grabbed the woman's hand and sobbed. "My flower, how could you die at such a young age?" In addition to the two of them, there were also a few commoners. One of them was the dead woman's husband. He was fat and strong and looked fierce. The people around him were either his friends or his subordinates. In short, they were all aggressive. A life for a life. If your miracle handhold doesn't give me an explanation today, I won't leave. The one who spoke was the dead woman's husband. That's right. A life for a life. Your miracle handhold must give us an explanation. Otherwise, we'll smash your clinic today. Let's see who dares to come to your miracle handhold for treatment in the future. The people around the man echoed loudly, and the formation was especially loud. Shopkeeper Wang was an experienced shopkeeper. Previously, when he was in the county town, there were many medical disturbances. One of them had even resulted in a death. He didn't immediately panic. He knew that once he panicked, the doctors and medicine boys in the clinic would all be in a mess. He composed himself and said to the man, "This strong man, if you have something to say, we can talk." "Talk what?" The man rudely interrupted Shopkeeper Wang. "I'm warning you, my wife has been killed by your treatment. This matter isn't over. You said that it was our miracle handhold that killed her. Do you have any evidence?" Gu Jiao calmly walked over. Her voice wasn't loud, but for some reason, everyone present slightly paused and couldn't help looking at her. Shopkeeper Wang seemed to have suddenly found his backbone and was relieved. "Miss Gu, you're finally here." Gu Jiao wasn't very old, but she was calmer than Shopkeeper Wang when faced with a group of fiendish men. The man couldn't help but look at Gu Jiao. In the end, she was only a 14 or 15-year-old little girl. After a short moment of shock, the man no longer paid any attention to Gu Jiao. "Who are you?" he asked. "This is the owner of our Miracle Hand Hall." Shopkeeper Wong straightened his back and said, "Owner? A little girl?" The man obviously didn't think that Gu Jiao had become the owner of the clinic based on her own abilities. Most likely, she was the daughter of the owner and had inherited her father's business. Thinking of this, the man no longer paid any attention to Gu Jiao. Evidence. Gu Jiao repeated. The man sneered and pulled out a prescription from his chest. "You want evidence? Good. My wife came here 7 days ago for treatment. This is the prescription that you gave her. It's written in black and white, and it's even stamped with your Miracle Hand Hall seal. If you don't believe me, let everyone take a look." As he spoke, he showed the prescription to the people outside the clinic. The people couldn't understand what was written on the prescription, but they could tell that there was a seal on it. The man finally walked in front of Gu Jiao and Shopkeeper Wong. "Your Miracle Hand Hall can't possibly not recognize the prescription that you've given out, right?" Shopkeeper Wong took the prescription over. The man wasn't afraid that he would tear up the evidence. With so many people watching, tearing it up would mean that he had a guilty conscience and admitted to it. After Shopkeeper Wong finished looking at it, his expression changed slightly. He whispered, "Miss Gu, this is indeed the prescription that was given out by our clinic." "Who gave it?" Gu Jiao asked. Shopkeeper Wong looked at the signature under the seal and said, "Dr. Song." Gu Jiao took the prescription. 1 chien of Chinese Angelica, half a chien of black mustard, 4 chien of Ligusticum chuanxiong, 1 chien of distillate silk, 3 slices of old raw ginger. This was the prescription of the 13 guardians. It was specially given to pregnant women to protect their babies. Other clinics could also give out this prescription, but this prescription really looked like Dr. Song's handwriting. It also had the seal of the clinic, so it shouldn't be fake. "Call Dr. Song over," Gu Jiao said. Dr. Song was in the back courtyard changing Jiang Shi's dressing. When he heard Shopkeeper Wong calling him, he asked, "Is it urgent?" "It's a bit urgent." "Is it urgent here?" Shopkeeper Wong asked. Jiang Shi could already speak. He said to Dr. Song, "You go busy yourself first. Come back later to change my dressing." "Okay, then I'll wrap the gauze first. Don't move." Dr. Song took care of Jiang Shi and went to the lobby with Shopkeeper Wong. Dr. Song looked at the lobby and the situation at the door. He was a bit confused. "It's a medical dispute," Shopkeeper Wong explained. Dr. Song has never experienced a medical dispute, but he has a calm temperament. He came to Gu Jiao's side and said, "Miss Gu." Gu Jiao handed the prescription to him. "Do you have any impression of this prescription?" Dr. Song took the prescription and looked at it carefully. "This is my prescription. My impression of it is not very deep. I have to go back and look at the file." Gu Jiao had strict requirements for medical practice. Not only was it reflected in medical skills and medical ethics, but even a series of operations were more in-depth and standardized than other medical centers. Every doctor has a detailed record of how many patients they receive every day and what diseases they treat. Gu Jiao nodded. Dr. Song went to the clinic and took this month's booklet. He turned to the page 7 days ago and found the record of the miscarriage medicine. The patient came to see the doctor because the fetus was affected by the work. I saw that it was not very serious, so I gave a prescription to prevent miscarriage. Gu Jiao, did you get the medicine here? Dr. Song nodded. Yes, the medicine boy's handprint is on the prescription. After listening, Gu Jiao went to the corpse lying in the middle of the lobby. What are you doing? The man stopped Gu Jiao. Autopsy, Gu Jiao said. The man's pupil shrank. You're crazy. You're not allowed to touch my wife's corpse. Gu Jiao ignored him. She squatted down and lifted the white cloth. It was a woman around 30 years old. Gu Jiao stood up and looked at the man lightly, reported to the authorities. These words were said to Shopkeeper Wong. The man was startled and said fiercely, "You, what did you say?" Gu Jiao fearlessly looked at his angry eyes. I said, reported to the authorities. Yes. Shopkeeper Wong believed in Gu Jiao, so he went out without saying anything. Stop him for me, the man ordered. Several of his companions rushed over and stopped shopkeeper Wang. The man pointed at Gu Jiao's nose and said, "Why are you reporting it to the authorities? Are you colluding with the officials and trying to bite us in the back? I have already seen through your black-hearted medical center's tricks. The lives of common people are worthless. You're a family of bandits. You're simply trying to take our lives." When the man finished speaking, he was so emotional that he began to cry. The common people pointed at him and stood on the man's side. Gu Jiao did not panic and said, "Good, you said that she is a patient of our medical center. Then tell me, who is she? How old is she this year? Who accompanied her here?" The man roared, "She is my wife. Can't you see how old she is?" Gu Jiao calmly said, "What is your wife's surname and name?" The man seemed to be getting more and more impatient with Gu Jiao's questions, so he roared, "Her surname is Wu. Her name is Wu Jinhua." Gu Jiao raised the booklet in her hand, but it's clearly written here that the patient is a 21-year-old pregnant woman, surnamed Yang, and the deceased. She is at least 30 years old. The man choked on the spot. The onlookers didn't expect things to turn around like this. They couldn't help but look at the man with suspicion. The man's eyes flashed and shouted, "You just casually took a booklet and said that it was the record of that day. Who knows if you wrote it on the spot?" Dr. Song busily said, "The medical book is recorded according to the day. When a page is full, it will continue to the next page. Even if I wanted to write on the spot, I have no place to write. What's more, I only went in for a short while. How could I write such a long paragraph?" Dr. Song showed the medical book to the onlookers. The entire page recorded the patient's identity, age, symptoms, time of treatment, diagnosis, and prescription. There were no less than 300 words. It wasn't something that could be written in the blink of an eye. What's more, if it was just written, the ink wouldn't be dry. The man stubbornly said, Then it's possible that you wrote it wrong." Gu Jiao nodded. "That's completely reasonable. That's why I said to report it to the authorities. Let the authorities find the patient based on the records. That should be able to clear our name." Hearing that Gu Jiao was going to ask for a witness, it was obvious who was the one lying. The onlookers were a little disappointed. After waiting for so long, they thought that they would be able to eat a big melon from the Miracle Hands Hall. But it turned out that there was nothing. When the man saw that he had been exposed, he turned around and ran. Gu Jiao didn't give him a chance to escape. In a few moves, she beat him to the ground. The remaining few were also successfully captured. Finally, Gu Jiao looked at the corpse lying on the ground. "If you don't get up, are you waiting to be buried alive?" The corpse bounced up and down. Damn. Everyone was so shocked that they fell backwards. Even the corpse was fake. While everyone was in shock, an inconspicuous figure silently left the crowd and turned into an alley, heading towards Chang, a main street not far away. What did you say? How could they resolve such a huge medical dispute so easily? In Huichun Hall, a man stood up from his chair in shock. This man was none other than shopkeeper He, who had tried to treat Guyan's illness at the hot spring villa. Shopkeeper, he was the confidant of the younger half-brother of the second boss. He had always worked hard for Huichun Hall. Yes, this little one was also very surprised. When that group of people appeared, this little one could tell that this wasn't a simple matter. Usually, in this kind of situation, they would come to extort money. The medical hall wouldn't be able to explain it clearly. For the sake of reputation, most medical halls would choose to minimize the problem. But they clearly laid out the evidence. The servant who replied told shopkeeper he in detail how Gu Jiao turned the situation around. Shopkeeper, he was stunned. How did they think of writing a medical book for each patient? Normally, medical halls would let people go after treating their patients. Who would care so much? Wasn't this troublesome? However, it was precisely because of this troublesome matter that they were able to present strong evidence. In fact, shopkeeper, he had already noticed that the style of Miracle Hands Hall was different from the others at the scene of the explosion. After that, he sent people to keep an eye on Miracle Hands Hall. Although he wasn't willing to admit that the first master of the Hu family, who had been kicked out of his family, would one day have a bright future, his newly opened Miracle Hands Hall had many areas that they could learn from. Shopkeeper, he thought about it and decided that from tomorrow onwards, he would start imitating Miracle Hands Hall's medical practice. The truth of the medical dispute was revealed, but Miracle Hands Hall's reputation wasn't damaged at all. Instead, because of their serious medical practice, they became the benchmark in the industry. Miracle Hands Hall's reputation in the capital became even better. Gu Jiao didn't pay attention to the aftermath of the few hooligans and left it to shopkeeper Wang to deal with. "Miss Gu, don't worry. I will handle it properly." Shopkeeper Wang was chosen by the second boss and was invited to the capital from the county town. Naturally, he had some ability. Gu Jiao was assured that he would handle things well. In the afternoon, Gu Jiao had some private matters to attend to, so she changed into men's clothes and went out. Seeing her in this outfit, Xiao Sanzi was stunned. Miss Gu? Why are you dressed like this?" Gu Jiao sat in the carriage and stretched her wrists. "Nothing much. Let's go to Chaoyang Street." "Chaoyang Street? That place is very far away. And it's not a good place." Xiao Sanzi's voice gradually weakened as Gu Jiao looked at him coldly. Her gaze made his scalp go numb. "All right, let's go then." Xiao Sanzi jumped into the carriage and picked up the horsewhip. Gu Jiao let down the curtains. The carriage was about to leave when another carriage drove over and stopped outside the back door of the medical center. A fair-skinned young eunuch alighted from the carriage. "Excuse me, is Miss Gu in the medical center?" "Who's looking for me?" Gu Jiao asked from inside the carriage. The young eunuch didn't see her, but he heard her voice. He cupped his hands toward the carriage and said, "Consort Rui Wang left her zither in your courtyard and ordered me to bring it back." Gu Jiao said, "Go find little Jiang Li and ask her to bring you to get it. It's on the table on the right of my study room." "Yes." The young eunuch answered and entered the medical center from a back door. Little Jiang Li was playing in Gu Jiao's courtyard. She heard that the young eunuch was here to get the zither. The table on the right. This one." Little Jiang Li took the zither case out and handed it to the young eunuch. "Thank you, young lady." The young eunuch left happily with the case. Little Jiang Li continued to water the grass in the courtyard. As she watered, she frowned. "I didn't put it in the wrong place, right?" Gu Jiao allowed little Jiang Li to play with the zither. When little Jiang Li entered the room, she found two zither and took them out. One of the zither seemed to have been burnt. She put the zither back after she was done playing with it. She didn't remember whether she put it back in the original box. Forget it, they're both Sister Gu's zither. It doesn't matter which box it is. Digression, I forgot to set the update time again. Here's a fat stamp for everyone to hug. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can be found on the internet are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/113278319. HTML Genius memorize the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 230. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all here. The young eunuch carried the Guqin case back to Rui Wang's residence. Consort Rui Wang was sitting in the pavilion and yawning. The young eunuch said, "Princess Consort, do you want to see it?" Consort Rui Wang was completely relieved that she got something from Gu Jiao. She waved her hand and said to the young eunuch, "Take it and keep it." "Yes." The young eunuch carried the guqin case into Consort Rui Wang's room. Female official Su was directing the servant girls to tidy up the room. The young eunuch bowed to her and said, "Older sister Su, Princess Consort asked this servant to bring the guqin over. Where is a suitable place to put it?" Female official Su found a cabinet that was often opened. "Just put it here. It will need to be played in a few days." The Liang Kingdom's envoys were about to arrive. The crown princess had just sent someone to pass on a message, hoping that Consort Rui Wang could play a song at the palace banquet to welcome the envoys. Really? Didn't the crown princess know that her princess consort was pregnant? Consort Rui Wang had an operation before the new year and was pregnant before her body had fully recovered. The imperial doctors had warned Consort Rui Wang to stay in bed and rest more. Female official Su was full of complaints, but she didn't dare to say it out loud. She could only gloomily close the cabinet. In March, when the grass was long and the orioles were flying, the capital was a thriving scene. The pedestrians on the streets jostled one another in an endless stream. The main streets of the capital were very wide and could accommodate at least 4 carriages side by side at the same time. The wider streets, like Zhuke Avenue near the Imperial Palace, could accommodate more than a dozen carriages without being crowded. Xiao Sanzi steadily stopped the carriage at the destination that Gu Jiao had mentioned. Xiao Sanzi raised his head to look at the 4 large characters of Taihe Martial Arts School on the signboard and couldn't believe his eyes. "Miss Gu, did we go the wrong way?" He turned left, then right, then right, then right, then right, then right again. Could he have turned the wrong way? Gu Jiao lifted the curtain to take a look and said, "That's right, it's here." Xiao Sanzi was even more confused. "No, Miss Gu, what are you doing here? Is it a house call?" But why did he have to change his clothes? Could it be that female doctors were not allowed to enter this clinic? Countless doubts flashed through Xiao Sanzi's mind. Gu Jiao did not answer and jumped off the carriage. "You stop the carriage in the alley and wait for me for a while." Oh, Xiao Sanzi was not a talkative person most of the time. Otherwise, Gu Jiao would not be willing to let him drive the carriage. Xiao Sanzi parked the carriage in an alley on the right side of the dojo. Gu Jiao walked into the dojo. Taihe Martial Arts School was one of the top martial arts schools in the capital. It had 3 floors, and after entering, there was a large hall. On the wall facing the entrance, there was a huge martial arts character written in cursive script. On both sides of the wall, there were all kinds of weapons. At this moment, there were several disciples of the martial arts school in the hall, gesturing with their bare hands, as if they were discussing how to spar. He wasn't surprised to see strangers. He was probably used to strangers. This was not strange. In the Zhao Kingdom, there was no military examination, only literary examination. Therefore, there would only be one literary scholar every 3 years in the Zhao Kingdom, unlike the Liang Kingdom and the Yan Kingdom, where the literary scholar would be selected at the same time as the national martial arts scholar. But the Zhao Kingdom also needed martial arts talents. Some people directly entered the military, such as Gu Changqing. Some people did not want to serve the imperial court, and only wanted to use their martial arts to find a way out for themselves. The martial arts club was born out of this situation. Although studying was the best of all, there were some people who were not born to study. They wanted to practice martial arts. After practicing martial arts, they could become an armed escort, a grandmaster, or a bodyguard in a rich family. In short, they would not lack food. It was better than digging for food in the fields. Therefore, martial arts schools were very popular in the Zhao Kingdom. Of course, there were different types of martial arts schools. In the jargon, there were closed halls and black halls. Closed halls only accepted disciples and taught martial arts. Closed halls were more complicated. In addition to accepting disciples, they also added a lot of other services. Taihe Martial Arts School was a black hall. This was what Gu Chengfeng revealed to Gu Jiao. It was mainly because Gu Jiao went to beat Gu Chengfeng every 2 or 3 days. At first, Gu Chengfeng was able to beat Gu Jiao by a narrow margin, but gradually, Gu Jiao tied with him. Gradually, Gu Jiao beat him into a pig's head. Even if he could take a beating, he would not be beaten like this. His ability was to steal things, not to be a punching bag. If Gu Jiao wanted to recover the strength of her previous life, she must continue to find stronger punching bags. Gu Jiao took out a mask from her chest and put it on. The mask was also robbed from Gu Chungfeng, and she did not spend a single copper coin. She entered the martial arts school with ease, passing through the drooping flower door and arriving at a seemingly empty tea room. She gently turned the oil lamp on the tea table. With a rumbling sound, the tea room's wall opened. There was a loud noise coming from inside. Gu Jiao expressionlessly walked into the passageway, and the wall behind her closed with a bang. After it closed, the noise in front of her seemed to be amplified. At the end of the passageway was a large martial arts field. It was a 3-story wooden building, and 2 floors were viewing rooms. In the middle of the first floor, there were 4 cold arenas. At this time, there were 3 arenas where martial arts were being fought. Gu Jiao came to the front of the counter and lightly tapped the table with her knuckles. The somewhat sleepy shopkeeper yawned. "Are you fighting or betting? 10 copper coins for a martial arts competition, 100 copper coins for a bet, and 200 for a room." Before he finished speaking, a small fishbone tablet fell in front of him. The shopkeeper glanced at the small fishbone tablet, and his expression froze, waking up half of his sleepiness. He immediately stood up, changed his expression, and said with a smile, "Young Master Li, why are you here? Didn't you just come here a few days ago?" Gu Jiao did not say anything, and only glanced at the name list in his hand. The shopkeeper understood and whispered, "East Arena." Gu Jiao walked towards the East Arena. The people behind Gu Jiao, who were waiting in line to receive their tokens, were unhappy. One of them shouted at the shopkeeper, "What's going on? We've been waiting in line for a long time, and we still haven't gotten in. How come he got in? Didn't they say that we can only enter after receiving a token?" The shopkeeper looked at the few newcomers with ridicule and showed the fishbone tablet in his hand. "Do you know what this is?" Everyone shook their heads. The shopkeeper raised his eyebrows and said arrogantly, "This is a martial master's bone tablet." Martial master? The few people who were still complaining about Gu Jiao just now all fell silent. That weak-looking young man was actually a martial master? In the martial arts club, the masters who taught martial arts were called martial masters. However, in the martial arts field, only masters who won 100 rounds were qualified to be called martial masters. He won 50 rounds? Someone said in surprise. Generally speaking, only people who won 50 rounds were called martial masters. The shopkeeper clicked his tongue and said impatiently, "What are you thinking? Just 1 round." He defeated a martial master in a single round. According to the rules of the martial arts clubs in the capital, as long as you won, you could take away your opponent's identity. However, not everyone was qualified to challenge someone of a higher rank. Not only did they have to sign a life and death contract, they also had to pay a huge deposit. If they lost, the deposit would go to the challenged person. When the young man first arrived, he boasted that he would compete with the most powerful master in the club. According to the rules of the martial arts club, you could only challenge someone of 2 ranks higher than you. However, the young man bet a whole 1,000 taels of silver, so the club made an exception for him and let him challenge someone of 3 ranks higher than him. At first, the martial master was unwilling to accept the challenge, but the club persuaded the young man to add another 500 taels of silver. Only then did the martial master accept the challenge. Challenging someone of a higher rank was one's own responsibility. This was the rule. Everyone thought that the young man was dead for sure, so no one bet on him winning. In the end, everyone lost their money. A young man holding a sword sneered disdainfully. "TSK, what's so great about defeating a martial master? I heard that a few martial arts masters came to your club today. I don't believe that he can still be so lucky." Everyone nodded. "That's right. He's so skinny. How could he defeat a martial master? He must have hit the jackpot." Gu Jiao didn't know about the heated discussion. Even if she knew, she probably wouldn't care. The 4 arenas in the east, west, south, and north had different masters assigned to them each day. The shopkeeper pointed at the East Arena. The strongest masters should be in that arena. Hero Yen Sandao wins. Is there anyone else who wants to challenge Hero Yen? On the arena, a young servant wearing the uniform of a martial arts club shouted, while holding gong and a club. Hero Yen had been guarding the arena for the entire morning and had defeated countless masters. No one dared to challenge him anymore. If there is no one else, then today Hero Yen will. The young servant was about to end the match when he saw a small figure jump onto the arena. On the other hand, the old marquis was copying military books in the palace. After copying for a day and a night, he finally finished the last copy. This was much more tiring than practicing martial arts. He was dizzy from copying and his limbs were numb. He was almost suffering from internal injuries. No, he was suffering from internal injuries. Ever since Marquis Xian Ping slipped out, he hadn't returned. No one knew what he was doing. The old marquis ignored him and stood up with the help of a table. Because his legs were too numb, he almost fell to the ground. He really did look like an old man in his 60s. The old marquis dragged his tired body to the imperial study to apologize to the emperor with the military book he had prepared. The emperor was wearing a net on his head. It was so ugly. He wasn't as shameless as Marquis Xian Ping. He didn't even attend morning court to protect his image. Your Majesty, I have finished copying the military book, the old marquis said outside the imperial study. Bring it in. The emperor waved his hand impatiently. Eunuch Wei walked over and took the military book the old marquis had copied. He whispered to the old marquis, "Go back." The old marquis understood and bowed respectfully toward the imperial study. "I will take my leave." After saying this, he turned around and limped out of the palace. The old marquis sat in the carriage. The coachman asked, "Master, are you okay? Are we going back to the marquis's residence? Do you want me to find you a medical hall? Your complexion doesn't look good." After copying military books for so long, how could his complexion be good? If he let those civil officials practice martial arts for a day and a night, they would also become exactly like him. But the old marquis was really sullen. Copying books made him feel so uncomfortable that he didn't want to go back to the residence to deal with old Madame Gu's questions. He paused and said, "Let's go to the martial arts center." The old marquis was a frequent visitor to the martial arts center. The martial arts center didn't know his specific identity. They only knew that he was a master with the surname Gu. He was very generous. The old marquis came to the martial arts center for 2 reasons. First, he liked to watch martial arts competitions. Second, he could pick out some promising talents. Of course, the old marquis had high standards. So after so many years, the number of people he chose was less than 10. And out of these 10 people, only 2 were able to withstand his harsh training. The rest were sent away. The old marquis asked for a room on the 2nd floor. The waiter asked if he wanted to place a bet. He threw a silver ingot on the table. No need. If he didn't place a bet, then the silver ingot would be a tip. The waiter beamed and stuffed the silver ingot into his clothes. "This little one will make tea for you. Do you want Longjing tea or Tiguanyin tea?" "Longjing tea," the old marquis said. "Okay." The waiter immediately went to brew a pot of good quality Longjing tea before the rain and brought out several exquisite and delicious pastries. "Enjoy your meal. This little one will wait outside. If you need anything, just call me." The old marquis waved his hand. The waiter left with a smile. The old marquis drank his tea as he began to enjoy the competition on the arena. His room faced the western arena. The western arena had the most comprehensive view. But for some reason, he was attracted to the competition on the eastern arena. It was a brawny man about 7 feet tall with dual axes. Whether it was brute force or internal energy, he was far superior to ordinary experts. But his opponent was an unremarkable azure-clothed youth. The azure-clothed youth didn't even use a weapon. He fought with his opponent with his bare hands. Even so, his opponent still couldn't gain the upper hand. A bit interesting. After about 7 or 8 moves, the dual axe-wielding brawny man was kicked off the arena by the azure-clothed youth. Soon, an expert with a red-tasseled spear jumped onto the arena. The old Marquis was a martial arts practitioner. He could tell at a glance that this person's martial arts were far above the dual axe-wielding expert. The azure-clothed youth was in danger. He didn't know why, but his heart actually rose to his throat. The azure-clothed youth made the first move. Unsurprisingly, the red-tasseled spear expert easily dodged. He leaped forward in a few steps and made a beautiful counterattack. The spearhead was aimed at the youth's heart. Damn it! The old Marquis stood up nervously. How could he fight so fiercely? Was this a cross-level competition? It was over. That child couldn't avoid it. He wasn't the only one who thought so. The people around the arena had the same thoughts. The coldness of the spear passed through his thin clothes and into the azure-clothed youth's body. The moment the spear pierced his heart, the azure-clothed youth's left hand suddenly grabbed the spear. Using the momentum, he jumped up and kicked his opponent's heart. When he landed, he flipped and took the red-tasseled spear from his opponent's hand. This series of actions was like moving clouds and flowing water. It was watertight. The azure-clothed youth didn't give his opponent any chance to breathe. Using the spear as a pole, he jumped up and swept his leg across, knocking his opponent to the ground. The azure-clothed youth grabbed the red-tasseled spear and was about to fiercely stab his opponent when he suddenly stopped. He broke the spear with his bare hands and used the spear shaft to knock his opponent off the arena. The old Marquis was drenched in sweat. He was scared and excited. His blood was boiling. He wanted to get off the arena. Although the youth was wearing a mask, he didn't look like he was more than 10 years old. To have such skills at such a young age, he was worthy of proving the saying. Since ancient times, heroes came from a youth. Of course, martial arts was only one of the reasons. The youth's action of breaking the spear head with his bare hands and using the spear shaft to knock his opponent off the arena also won the old Marquis's praise. The haze of being punished suddenly disappeared. The old Marquis's entire body felt comfortable. After this, no one dared to challenge the azure-clothed youth. The azure-clothed youth regretfully left the arena. If I had known, I would have deliberately lost a few rounds. Gu Jiao rubbed her wrist and walked towards the entrance. Little brother, please wait. A familiar voice sounded behind her. Gu Jiao stopped in her tracks and turned around with a strange expression. Gu Jiao wore a mask and changed her clothes. The old Marquis didn't recognize her, but Gu Jiao recognized the old Marquis. Gu Jiao frowned. How much hatred and resentment did he have? He even chased her all the way to the martial arts school. The old Marquis politely cupped his hands. Little brother, can I have a word with you? Gu Jiao didn't make a sound. It turned out that he didn't recognize her. The old Marquis thought that the youth was afraid of strangers. He smiled and said, Little brother, don't think too much. I don't have any bad intentions. I saw little brother's skills and wanted to ask if little brother is interested in joining the army? No. She wanted to go home and cook. The other party didn't make a sound again. The old Marquis thoughtfully looked at the youth's throat. Little brother, you can't speak? Gu Jiao thought for a moment and nodded. The Secret Service in the organization actually had vocal training. Women could imitate men's voices, and men could also imitate women's voices. But Gu Jiao didn't like to talk, let alone stay at home all day. She was first in the rest of the training, but she was last in the vocal training. Because she didn't know how to imitate men, Gu Jiao didn't speak at all in the martial arts school. Everyone thought that she was mute. The old Marquis sighed. She was really a good seedling with a disability, but a strong will. This kind of seedling going to the battlefield was not necessarily a good thing. Not being able to hear would cause him to lose a lot of his judgment. The old Marquis gave up on the idea of bringing Gu Jiao into the army, but he still wanted to make friends with this person. Little brother, can we be friends? Age, there was a bit of a difference. Being friends despite the difference in age was also not bad. The old Marquis was a true martial arts fanatic. Many people thought that he was naturally fond of fighting. In reality, this was not the case. He was naturally fond of fighting, but fighting and fighting were often forced together. Gu Jiao did not have any interest in making friends with such an old person. Gu Jiao shook her head and rejected him. The old marquis sighed in disappointment. Gu Jiao turned to leave. Suddenly, Huang Zhong anxiously rushed in. "Master, you're here? I knew that you wouldn't return to the manor. You must have come here." "Master?" Gu Jiao looked at Huang Zhong and then looked at the old marquis. Huang Zhong was Marquis Gu's trusted aide. He was a guard of Marquis Ding and manor. He called this old man master. Could it be that this old man was Marquis Gu's father? What's wrong? The old marquis asked with a frown. Huang Zhong glanced at Gu Jiao to the side. He vaguely felt that this blue-clothed youth's aura was a bit familiar, but he could not remember where he had seen him before. In addition, he was in a hurry to speak, so he did not take it to heart. He said, "Someone from the Ling family came. The heir is not here. The old madam wants you to quickly return." Ling family's heir. Very good. His identity had been confirmed. Gu Jiao, who had already left, suddenly turned back. She took out a piece of paper and a charcoal pencil and scribbled. "Won't be friends. Worshipping. Wishes?" The old marquis was stunned. Gu Jiao continued to write. "Worshipping. Son. You. Is. My. Son. Not nephew." The old marquis was successfully led astray. Gu Jiao thought for a bit, then wrote, "No. Fine. Let him call father. Digression Marquis Gu. Oh. The monthly votes will be doubled in the last few days. Those who still have monthly votes will vote quickly. The newest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels that cannot be found online will all be available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_89642826/113255848. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 231. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. In the parlor of Marquis Ding and Fu, old Madame Gu was entertaining a guest from the Ling family. Her sister-in-law, old Madame Ling usually. When one reaches their age, they rarely go out and leave everything to their sons and daughters-in-law. It was obvious that something big must have happened for old Madame Ling to visit. "You are his grandmother. Why can't you make decisions for him? I know that concubine Ling's matter is the Ling family's fault. The Ling family didn't teach this concubine's daughter well. But you are also a daughter of the Ling family. You are so dignified." Old Madame Ling flattered her so much that old Madame Gu couldn't find her bearings. However, old Madame Gu really couldn't make decisions for Gu Changqing's marriage. In fact, old Madame Gu couldn't make decisions for anything related to Gu Changqing. Old Madame Ling was magnanimous. As long as she liked Gu Qingfeng or Gu Qinglin, old Madame Gu could make the decision. Old Madame Gu first wanted her son to make a decision, but Marquis Gu had just been slapped by his father and was still hurting. How could he dare to go over his father to interfere with Gu Changqing's marriage? Marquis Gu then sent Huang Zhong to find old Marquis. Huang Zhong came back rather quickly. He rushed into the room with an indescribable expression. Old Madame Gu asked, "Where's old master?" Huang Zhong said embarrassedly, "Old master. Old master said he has something urgent and can't come back for the time being." Old Madame Ling was so angry that she fell backwards. He had already resigned. What urgent matter could there be? It was clearly an excuse to brush off the Ling family. Back then, before brother-in-law made a fortune, you married into a lower family. But in the end, this is how your Gu family repaid the Ling family. Old Madam Ling said coldly and turned to leave. Old Madam Gu was so agitated that she felt bad. She quickly grabbed her hand and said, "Sister-in-law, don't be angry. Why don't we ask Chan Qing directly? If he agrees, I'm sure old master won't object to anything." Old Madam Ling heard this and went to Gu Changqing's courtyard with old Madam Gu. Who would have thought that they would find nothing? Gu Changqing wasn't there either. Old Madam Gu's expression changed. Nonsense. He was still injured. He left the residence just like that. Gu Changqing had promised Gu Yan last month that he would teach him how to ride a horse. Today was the day the two of them agreed to do so. Gu Changqing did not care about his injuries and insisted on leaving the manor. He rode his Fergana horse to Clearwater Alley. Gu Yan had asked Yao Shi in a roundabout way, but Yao Shi was against him riding a horse. She was afraid that if he fell, it would cause his heart disease to act up. Thus, Gu Yan did not tell his family about this. After school, Gu Yan waited at the entrance of the courtyard. Although he was in the courtyard, he poked his little head out from time to time, looking left and right. After looking, he quickly shrank his head back, like a little quail. When Gu Changqing entered Jadewater Alley, he immediately saw his little quail. It had a bunch of a hogue on its head and looked quite silly. Gu Changqing's mood suddenly became very good. He urged his horse to go over. Gu Yan heard the sound of horse hooves coming from afar. He stepped over the threshold with big steps, the joy in his eyes overflowing with words. Gu Changqing stopped the horse in front of him and bent down to reach out his hand. Gu Yan put his hand in his. Gu Changqing's hand was very wide. He practiced martial arts all year round, so his palms were full of calluses. Gu Yan's hand was smaller, slender, and fair. Although he worked every day in Lil Jing Kong to clean up chicken poop, he did not have any calluses. It was soft. Gu Changqing was afraid that he would accidentally break his hand. Gu Changqing eased his strength and pulled him onto the horse, letting him sit in front of him. Gu Yan sat down and felt that something was wrong. He looked down and said, You changed your saddle?" "Yes." "Didn't you think it was hard?" Gu Changqing said. "I didn't think it was hard." Gu Yan opened his eyes wide and said seriously. He said that he did not think it was hard, but he kept moving around uncomfortably. Gu Changqing was not stupid. He turned around and asked someone to change it. "Then will you not like it?" Gu Yan asked. Gu Changqing said, "No. I like whatever you like." Gu Yan laughed. There was movement in the courtyard. Gu Yan hurriedly urged, "Quick, quick, quick. Don't let my mother find out. Otherwise, I won't be able to leave." Yao Shi, who had already found out, Gu Changqing held the reins tightly and nodded to Yao Shi from afar, indicating that he would take good care of Gu Yan and send Gu Yan back safely. Yao Shi saw that her son was so clingy to Gu Changqing. She did not know whether to be happy or worried. Her son had always wanted an older brother since he was young. Now he really had one, but it was someone who hurt him when he was young. If he knew the truth, she did not know what her son would think. Giddy, giddy, giddy. Gu Yan sat in front of Gu Changqing. He held the reins with both hands and urged the horse forward. In reality, it was Gu Changqing who was controlling the horse. Gu Yan even felt that he was very good at riding a horse. Looking at his smug and excited expression, Gu Changqing couldn't help but chuckle. His laughter was low and full of magnetism. It was especially pleasant to hear in the noisy streets. Gu Yan turned around to look at him. "What's wrong?" Gu Changqing asked. There was still a smile on his face that had not yet faded. Gu Yan was dazzled by this smile. He said in a daze, "You look really good when you smile." Gu Changqing did not like to smile. He had probably inherited this trait from the old marquis. No one knew what he looked like when he smiled, how good he looked, how warm he was. Gu Changqing had been praised for his martial arts, and had been praised as a promising young man. However, no one had ever praised his smiling face. Gu Changqing was momentarily speechless. Fortunately, Gu Yan's attention was quickly drawn back to the fine horse. He began to concentrate on riding. Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up. Faster, faster. There's someone here. Slow down, slow down. Gu Changqing's slender and strong legs clamped tightly around the horse's belly. He used the strength in his legs to make his horse understand the speed. This horse had been with Gu Changqing since it was a foal. The man and horse had long since reached an indescribable tacit understanding. It was a mature warhorse. Its hooves were used to trample on the enemy's head. Now it could only be used to coax children. The horse's heart was bitter, but the horse did not say anything. Gu Yan played crazily the entire way. He was sweating profusely. Gu Changqing did not want him to be tired. He said to him, "Why don't you rest for a while?" "Are you tired?" Gu Yan turned to look at him with an expression that said, "I'm not tired at all." Gu Changqing could not help but nod and say softly, "Yes, I'm tired." Okay. Then I'll let you rest for a while." Gu Yan tightened the reins. "Donkey, horse, I'm a horse." Other horses would indeed shout like this to stop. But Gu Changqing's horse did not need these slogans. The horse did not stop. It did not admit that it was a donkey. Gu Yan was anxious. "Is that how you shout?" "Donkey, donkey," he shouted again. "Why is it not working?" Gu Changqing kicked the stirrups to give his old friend a warning. The horse reluctantly stopped. There was a restaurant nearby. It was a very famous restaurant in the capital, the Crane Restaurant. It was said that there was once a red-crowned crane that flew over and quietly rested on the roof of the building for a long time before leaving. Although the red-crowned crane flew away, the fortune of the red-crowned crane remained. Anyone who came to eat at the red-crowned crane restaurant would be blessed and have great luck. This was naturally a gimmick created by the Crane Restaurant for business. However, one dared to boast and the other dared to believe. Who knew how many customers came to eat at the Crane Restaurant every day? The two of them were lucky. Someone had just checked out of a room upstairs. "It's the price of that room." The waiter embarrassedly made a gesture that indicated that it was not cheap. If Gu Changfeng spent a few hundred taels for a meal, he would probably be beaten to death by Gu Changqing. But now that Gu Yan wanted to eat, Gu Changqing actually took out the money without saying anything. The Gu family's double standards existed from the very beginning. The two of them entered the room and ordered a table of dishes. Gu Yan hadn't eaten yet, so he was indeed a little hungry. He quickly started eating. Gu Changqing's injuries had not healed yet. Moreover, he had been on a bumpy journey and was blown by the cold wind. At this moment, he actually did not have any appetite. Gu Yan picked up some food for him. "You eat too." Gu Changqing picked up his chopsticks. "Okay." The two of them ate. Suddenly, a burst of bold laughter came from the room next door. Gu Changqing frowned strangely. This laughter, why did it sound a little familiar? In the room next door, the old Marquis and Gu Jiao raised their cups and drank. Ever since Gu Jiao experienced the incident of learning to sing in Little Jingkong, she deeply realized that her alcohol tolerance was not good. Therefore, she used tea as a substitute for wine. The old Marquis could not use tea as a substitute for wine. He really drank until he was drunk. The main thing was that he was happy today to have met such a powerful little brother. From today onwards, he, Gu Jiao, also had a brother. The old Marquis leaned on the table and drunkenly said to Gu Jiao, "Brother, you don't worry, my son is your son. I will make him filial. You point to the east. He can't go west. You point to the north. He can't go north. If he dares not to call you father, I'll beat him." Digression. I did not forget to upload today. Mysterious Energy. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642_8964226/113253101. HTML Genius. Remember the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga Mobile Reading Website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 232. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. At this time, Marquis Gu, who was lying in the Fu recuperating, did not know that his old man had drunk and returned with a father. He was thinking in his heart that once he recovered, he would bring Yao Shi back to the Fu. If that girl dared to stop him, he would ask the old Marquis to come out and teach that girl a lesson. In the room next door, Gu Chongqing felt that something was wrong the more he heard the voice. It sounded like his grandfather's voice, but it also seemed to be drunk. He looked at Gu Yan in front of him. Gu Yan was burying his head in eating and did not notice that what was going on in the room next door had anything to do with him. Thinking about it, Gu Yan went to the villa when he was around 4 years old. During this time, he had never returned to the capital. He probably even forgot what the old Marquis looked like, not to mention his voice. Those crazy drunken words were intermittent. He did not really understand, but he felt that it was not a good thing. Gu Chongqing decided to go next door to take a look. "You eat first, I'm going out for a bit." "Oh." Gu Yan did not suspect anything and obediently put down his chopsticks. "Then I'll wait for you to come back." He did not eat alone. Gu Chongqing's heart suddenly softened. How could there be such a sensible child? Were all the children with his younger sister so sensible? His younger sister was also very sensible. Thinking of Gu Jiao, Gu Chongqing's eyes flashed with the gentleness of an elder brother. "No need, I'll be back soon. You can continue eating." Gu Chongqing knew that Gu Yan was hungry. It was dinner time, and Gu Yan was at the age where his body was growing. Gu Yan agreed verbally, but did not touch his chopsticks. Gu Chongqing could only go quickly and come back quickly. He went next door. The door was ajar. As soon as he entered the room, he heard the words, "If he dares not call you father, I'll beat him." Gu Chongqing's eyebrows fiercely jumped. Who called who father? Because old Madame Ling had come to the manor today. Gu Chongqing used his injuries as an excuse to decline old Madame Ling's visit. Actually, he understood in his heart that old Madame Ling had come to visit because of his marriage with Ling Shuixian. Could it be? Grandfather was drinking with Uncle Ling? Grandfather agreed to this marriage? As Gu Chongqing pondered, he drew the curtain and walked around the screen, only to see the old Marquis leaning against the back of a chair in a drunken stupor. Beside him was a young boy in green clothes wearing a mask. The old Duke was so drunk that he couldn't tell north from south. Gu Jiao took off her mask. However, when she heard the commotion at the door, she quickly put the mask back on. This mask was the latest custom-made by Gu Qingfeng. It was exquisite and coquettish, and Gu Qingfeng had never worn it before. Therefore, even though Gu Chongqing had seen Fei Shuang's portrait before, he could not tell what was wrong with the mask. "Who are you?" Gu Chongqing looked at the young boy in green clothes. Gu Jiao turned her head and looked at Gu Chongqing. She pointed at her fingers and used her eyes to tell him, "You have to call me grandfather. Do you believe me?" Gu Chongqing felt that he understood. The old Marquis suddenly went into a drunken stupor. He stood up unsteadily and pointed at Gu Chongqing's nose. "You. Who are you? Who speaks to my brother like this?" Brother? Gu Chongqing's jaw was about to drop. This young boy looked to be about the same age as Gu Yan, right? How did he become his grandfather's brother? Also, grandfather was really too drunk. Was his alcohol tolerance so bad? Gu Jiao proudly shook her head. "Don't recognize me, don't recognize me, don't recognize me. Sister." Gu Yan's voice suddenly sounded. Gu Jiao's small body stiffened. "I'm armed to the top of my head. How can he recognize me like this?" Others might not recognize me, but how can Gu Yan not recognize me? After all, I lived in my mother's womb for 10 months. Gu Yan pursed his lips. Sister, why are you dressed like this? You're even wearing a mask? Gu Chongqing narrowed his eyes. Grandfather? Gu Jiao, did she still have a chance to hide? Gu Jiao did not expect that she would fall so quickly in front of Gu Chongqing. Just as Gu Jiao was thinking about how to hide, the drunk old marquis suddenly fell unconscious with a thud. Who is he? Gu Yan suddenly looked at the old marquis who was lying on the ground. Gu Chongqing opened his mouth, but did not dare to say that this was his grandfather and also his grandfather. He said to Gu Yan and Gu Jiao, "You two go next door first, leave this to me." Gu Jiao decisively took her brother's hand and went next door. Gu Chongqing helped the old marquis down the red-crowned crane tower and sent him to the carriage. When he returned to the side room, Gu Jiao had already escaped, leaving only Gu Yan with his little ahogue. Gu Chongqing sighed. Forget it. After the two finished eating, it was a little late. Gu Chongqing sent Gu Yan home. The sky was clear during the day, but it suddenly started to drizzle in the evening. Gu Chongqing used his cloak to cover Gu Yan. He was 21 this year and had the figure of a mature man. Gu Yan was still young, so his 15-year-old body was nestled in his arms and perfectly covered by the cloak. Hold tight, Gu Chongqing said to Gu Yan. Gu Yan then held the cloak in front of him as if he was holding two curtains. Gu Chongqing's strong arm wrapped around his thin waist, while his other hand held the reins. The wind gradually started to blow, and the spring rain pattered down. It was originally a bit cold, but Gu Chongqing's chest was broad and warm. Gu Yan was surrounded by a huge sense of security, and soon he felt sleepy. Gu Chongqing could feel his little chick pecking at rice. He tightened his arm and pulled him into his embrace. Gu Yan's body steadied, and his head completely rested in the hollow of his neck. It was too comfortable to sleep like this. Gu Yan's little nose soon let out a weak, snoring sound. Gu Chongqing slowed down. When they passed through the alley and came to Chang, on Main Street, Gu Chongqing ran into an acquaintance from the barracks. Gu Chongqing had no intention of greeting the other party, but the other party seemed to have noticed him. He urged his horse to come over, pulled the reins, and stopped in front of Gu Chongqing. He looked at Gu Chongqing with interest. "Oh, isn't this Commandant Gu? What a coincidence." As he spoke, his eyes fell on Gu Yan, who was tightly covered by Gu Chongqing's cloak, with only a pair of legs exposed. Gu Yan was wearing men's clothes. His expression was suddenly colored with a layer of indescribable meaning. "Commandant Gu hasn't come to the barracks these days. He said he was injured, but it turned out that there was a beauty by his side. Commandant Gu enjoyed himself so much that he forgot to go home." Gu Yan slept soundly and had no idea what had happened. Gu Chongqing couldn't help but hug him tighter. He looked coldly at the repulsive man in front of him and said in an icy tone, "Is there something you need, Commandant Tang?" Commandant Tang Ming was the nephew of the General of Agile Cavalry. He was 2 years older than Gu Chongqing. Not only was he skilled in martial arts, but he also had the support of the General of Agile Cavalry. He had always been domineering in the army. His official rank was lower than Gu Chongqing's, but he had never taken Gu Chongqing seriously. Tang Ming looked playfully at Gu Yan's legs, which were hanging off the sides of the horse. Even though he was wearing loose pants, it wasn't hard to see that it was a pair of long and straight legs. Tang Ming had an unknown hobby, and that was that he liked to play with young men. His own thoughts were dirty, so when he saw Gu Chongqing hiding someone in his arms, his first reaction was that he and Gu Chongqing were on the same path. Tang Ming chuckled. "No wonder Commandant Gu doesn't get close to women. So that's what you like." A trace of disgust and coldness flashed through Gu Chongqing's eyes. Other people didn't know about Tang Ming's hobby, but he knew. Because he had bumped into him and let that person escape, Tang Ming had formed a grudge with him because of this. Gu Yan, who was in Gu Chongqing's arms, seemed to have sensed the uncomfortable atmosphere and snuggled into Gu Chongqing's arms. With this movement, the cloak that had been covering him slid down, revealing his stunning young face. The weather was cold, but Gu Changqing's chest was burning hot. Gu Yan's face was flushed from the warmth. His neck was as white as jade, his lips were pale, and his eyelashes were long and slender like fans. This was the best quality in the world. Tang Ming had played with so many male prostitutes, but none of them were as seductive as the young man in front of him. No wonder Gu Changqing didn't go to the military camp. If it were him, he would probably want to die on this young man's body. Tang Ming's eyes were glued to him. When Gu Changqing saw that Tang Ming was using such a dirty gaze to blaspheme Gu Yan, his eyes darkened. With a flick of his sleeve, he pulled his cloak over himself. He didn't say anything to bid farewell to Tang Ming and just ignored him. Tang Ming wiped his mouth as if he hadn't had enough. He sneered and said, "Don't be like this. I only took a few glances. If you get tired of playing with me someday," before he could finish speaking, Gu Changqing unsheathed his long sword and slashed it toward Tang Ming. Tang Ming hadn't expected that Gu Changqing would be so fierce. Although he was famous for being unreasonable, he wouldn't abuse his authority. Right now, Tang Ming had only said a few words, and he was already brandishing his sword at him. Tang Ming also quickly drew his knife. However, Gu Changqing's sword was too fast. It was almost like a shadow. Tang Ming had only drawn his knife halfway when Gu Changqing's sword had already cut off a strand of his long hair and was firmly pressed against his neck. That strand of hair slowly fell into his hand and then fell to the muddy ground. It was washed away by the murky rainwater on the ground. It was only at this moment that Tang Ming suddenly realized that Gu Changqing had been hiding his true abilities. His martial arts weren't what he usually showed. Gu Changqing hugged Gu Yan tightly in his arms and looked at Tang Ming with a cold and dangerous gaze. "Don't have any ideas about him. I'll kill you." The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online can be found here. https://www.zhpqg.com/89642_896422286/113228956. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhpqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 233. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. Tang Ming felt Gu Changqing's frozen anger and was shocked on the spot. Gu Changqing didn't want to wake Gu Yan up, so he didn't make a big fuss. He put away his sword and left with Gu Yan. It wasn't until Gu Changqing disappeared at the end of the street that Tang Ming recovered from the cold rain. Mother, was he just threatened by Gu Changqing? Gu Changqing sent Gu Yan back to Bai Shui Alley. On the other side, Gu Jiao also returned to the medical center. She entered from a back door and went directly to her courtyard. She changed back into her female clothes before going to the lobby. Shopkeeper Wang was surprised when he saw her. "Eh? Where did you come in from?" "The back door," Gu Jiao said. Xiao Sanzi followed behind and didn't dare to say anything. Dr. Song came down from upstairs after seeing a patient and greeted Gu Jiao. Shopkeeper Wang handed her a cup of tea. Gu Jiao took a sip and asked Dr. Song, "How is Jiang Shi's condition?" The weather changed. He suddenly caught a cold. He had a high fever at noon, so he took some medicine and reseated. It's best that he doesn't catch a cold. It's easy to cause complications. Gu Jiao said and paused. "I'll go take a look in a while." "Okay." Dr. Song agreed. "Dr. Song, this patient said that you gave him a prescription, but he lost it. He asked if he could still get the medicine." At the medicine cabinet, the medicine boy called Dr. Song. Dr. Song, I'll go over. Gu Jiao nodded. Dr. Song went to the medicine counter. There were not many patients at the moment, so the clinic was not busy. Shopkeeper Wang invited Gu Jiao to the accountant's room and told him about the aftermath of the medical dispute. Those people are the hooligans in the capital. They usually do nothing but steal. They are not from our area. They are from the west of the city. I promise them that as long as they tell me who's behind this, I won't report it to the authorities. I was just trying to blackmail them. Who would have thought that they were really instructed by someone else? Gu Jiao was not surprised. Are you in the same industry? Gu Jiao asked. Shopkeeper Wang then said, that's what I guessed as well. They said there was a mastermind, so I was thinking, could it be the old boss? Hui Chun Hall? But guess what, Miss Gu, they told me it was a girl. Gu Jiao asked, how old is she? Shopkeeper Wang nodded and recalled, they said that she was a young girl, about 10 years old from her voice. She wore a bamboo hat and a veil, so they couldn't see her face clearly. Her clothes were expensive. I was thinking, Hui Chun Hall doesn't have any girls in their teens. Second master's daughter was not even 7 years old. But if it was a girl from a shopkeeper's family, her clothes were not that expensive. Shopkeeper Wang really couldn't guess who the girl was. Gu Jiao touched his chin. Girl. The rain outside stopped, but the sky was still gloomy. It seemed like there would be another heavy rain at any time. The girls' school didn't dare to delay and let the students out on time. Li Wanwan's house was not close. She didn't have a carriage like other daughters, so she had to get home before it rained again. She hugged the zither case and quickly walked out of the girls' school. Perhaps because she was too anxious, she didn't notice a man coming down from a carriage at the clinic's entrance. Li Wanwan bumped into the other party's arm. In a zither room on the second floor of the girls' school, a young girl was looking at Royal Prince, and who was coming down from the carriage. Her eyes were full of light. But suddenly, she saw Li Wanwan bumping into the other party. Her eyes instantly turned cold. I'm sorry. Li Wanwan hurriedly apologized. Royal Prince didn't even look at her. Wu Yang walked forward and said to her, It's okay, girl. Did I hurt you? No. Li Wanwan didn't dare to look at the two of them. Since the other party didn't pursue the matter, she quickly left with the zither case. The young girl's eyebrows gradually relaxed. She looked at Royal Prince, and her eyes lit up again. She raised her hand and waved at Royal Prince, and Royal Prince didn't see her and walked towards the clinic with his head lowered. Suddenly, another daughter from the girls' school walked over. Royal Princeton? The daughter called out to Royal Prince, who was about to enter the clinic with uncertainty. Royal Prince turned to look at her and asked in confusion, May I ask what's the matter, girl? The daughter excitedly covered her mouth. Your poems are so good. I've been collecting your poems since I was young. I even made your poems into a book. Royal Prince smiled politely. He was just like that, acting like a modest gentleman to everyone. The young girl upstairs couldn't hear what the two of them were talking about. She only saw the two of them talking and laughing. A burst of jealousy rushed into her heart. The daughter patted her head. I left the book in the classroom. Royal Prince, please wait for a moment. I'll go get the book. There are a few lines that I don't understand and would like to ask Royal Prince for advice. After saying this, she quickly returned to the girls' school. Her classroom was on the second floor. At this time, most of the students in the girls' school had left. The attic was empty, and her footsteps seemed to echo. She pushed the door and entered. She saw the book of poems covered with a handkerchief on the table. She let out a sigh of relief and put the handkerchief away. She carefully hugged the book of poems in her arms. Royal Prince was still waiting for her. She quickly walked out of the classroom. Just as she was about to go downstairs, a white hand reached out from the darkness. It slowly reached out to her back and wanted to push her down. Suddenly, Zhuang Mengdai ran over from the hall on the first floor while lifting her dress. Who is it? The daughter stopped in her tracks. The hand behind her was pulled back, and the owner of the hand hid behind the wall. The daughter was also startled by the sudden voice. She calmed herself down and said, "Young Miss Zhuang, it's me." It was dark, and Zhuang Mengdai couldn't see her clearly. She could only confirm her identity through the voice. Zhuang Mengdai said in disappointment, "It's young Miss Zhang. Have you seen my sister?" Young Miss Zhang shook her head. "I haven't seen her." Zhuang Mengdai stomped her feet in annoyance. "Really? Where did she go?" "She said she would wait for me. She went to the toilet, and when she came back, she was gone." Young Miss Zhang saw Zhuang Mengdai cursing as she walked forward. She didn't know why, but she felt a sense of danger. She gathered her courage to look back, but she didn't see anything. She felt uneasy and quickly called out to Zhuang Mengdai, "Young Miss Zhuang, can I go with you?" "Hurry up," Zhuang Mengdai said impatiently. "Coming." Young Miss Zhang hugged the book of poems and quickly went downstairs. It wasn't until she left the girls' school and saw the endless stream of people that the uneasiness in young Miss Zhang's heart gradually dissipated. In the end, Royal Prince didn't see Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao went home, and the two missed each other perfectly. Royal Prince regretfully sat back in the carriage. Gu Jiao went to the Imperial College, first to bring little Jing Kong home. Xiao Lulang had an evening class, so he didn't come back with them. The atmosphere in the Imperial College was very tense recently. Even an outsider like Gu Jiao could feel it. It seemed that everyone didn't have the confidence to meet the emperor. The court examination was originally in the first half of April. However, it was said that because of the visit of the Liang Kingdom's envoy, it was postponed to the last half of April. The people in the capital were different from the people in the countryside. The topics they discussed every day weren't whose chicken had laid eggs, whose sow had given birth, when the millet should be harvested, when the wheat should be harvested. They were very concerned about the current situation. Even Master Zhao next door knew that an envoy had come to the capital. Transportation was inconvenient in ancient times, so diplomatic exchanges were not as frequent as in her previous life. However, there would still be an envoy every 2 to 3 years. The world was divided into 6 countries. The Liang Kingdom belonged to the 3 upper kingdoms, while the Zhao Kingdom belonged to the 3 lower kingdoms. The Liang Kingdom's status was much higher than the Zhao Kingdom's. It was no wonder that the imperial court paid so much attention to the visit of the Liang Kingdom's envoy. However, all of this had nothing to do with Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao held little Jing Kong's hand and went back to Bishui Alley. "Jing Kong, school is over? Sister is going to pick you up?" Aunt Lu was hanging clothes at the door and teased little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong jumped up and down and said, "Yes, Aunt Lu, Jiao Jiao is coming to pick me up from school." Xiao Lulang held little Jing Kong's hand and went home. Little Jing Kong always hung his head and was unwilling to go home. He looked as if he was being dragged away by a child. However, when Gu Jiao held his little hand and went home, he was full of energy and jumped up and down. He looked as if he was a child who wanted to drag Gu Jiao back to his nest. He was very arrogant. Gu Jiao also greeted Aunt Lu and brought little Jing Kong into the house. Today, the old chancellor wasn't home, and senior servant Fang also went out. She went to buy cloth and clothes for the family. Madame Yao was waiting for Gu Yan in the house. She fell asleep while waiting. Little Jing Kong quietly opened the door and stuck his head out to take a look. Seeing that Madame Yao had fallen asleep, he didn't disturb her. He quietly walked down the steps and came to Gu Jiao. He covered his mouth with his small hand and whispered, "Jiao Jiao, Madame is asleep." "MHM," Gu Jiao responded and asked him, "Do you have homework?" "I've already finished it." Little Jing Kong spread his hands in a small voice. Gu Jiao rubbed his little head and said, "Then play by yourself for a while. I'll go cook." "MHM." Little Jing Kong nodded obediently. He was a sensible child and would never pester Jiao Jiao to play with him all the time. Besides, he did have his own things to do. Today, elder brother Yan asked for leave. So strange, why did he ask for leave? In short, little Jing Kong had to shovel chicken poop by himself. Little Jing Kong took his personal small shovel, shoveled a handful of sand, and began to clean the chicken poop in the yard, as well as Little Joe's bird poop. Because he hadn't shoveled for a long time, he was rusty. Little Jing Kong took a long time to finish shoveling the chicken poop in the yard. I'm so tired. Because of the rain, the chicks were locked in the cages for a while. Now that the rain had stopped, Little Jing Kong decided to take them out for a walk. Little Jing Kong's chicken walk had expanded from Bai Shui Hatong to the orchard, mainly because there was a lot of green grass in the orchard. The chicks could eat some worms and other things in the orchard, which could cancel the chicken feed contract at home. He was a good child who was diligent and thrifty. 7 chicks lined up in a formation and went out valiantly, followed by a puppy and a baby eagle. Generally speaking, birds could fly and jump, but they shouldn't be able to walk. However, the baby eagle walked very well. It was worthy of being a chick raised by a chicken. As for Little 8, it had also successfully leveled up. It was no longer a useless puppy. It was now a noble shepherd dog. Little 8 held its head high and strode out in a disdainful manner. When Little Jing Kong arrived at the orchard for his chicken walk, 2 drops of rain seemed to be falling from the sky. "Okay, we're going home," Little Jing Kong said to his little army. 7 chicks and a baby eagle turned around the corner in an orderly manner, followed behind Little Jing Kong, and walked back in an orderly manner. Suddenly, Little Jing Kong felt that the top of his head was dark, and a fragrant wind came to his nose. He was small, so the first thing he saw was a white dress that was at the same level as his line of sight. It was so clean that it was spotless. Then he raised his little head and saw a veiled bamboo hat. The girl in the bamboo hat bent slightly, and the fragrance became more fragrant. This kind of fragrance was very pleasant, but Little Jing Kong still preferred the fragrance of Jiao Jiao. He looked at the girl who suddenly blocked his way strangely, and out of politeness, he asked her politely, "What can I do for you? Why are you blocking my way?" The girl in the bamboo hat asked gently, "Little guy, do you know Xiao Yulong's family?" Little Jing Kong looked at her from head to toe. In fact, he couldn't see anything from her, because she covered herself too tightly. "Who are you?" Little Jing Kong asked. The girl in the bamboo hat didn't answer him, but took out a stick of sugar-coated haws from behind her back and gently coaxed him. "As long as you tell me where Xiao Yulong's family is, I'll give you the sugar-coated haws." Little Jing Kong loved to eat sugar-coated haws. But Little Jing Kong wasn't in a hurry to ask for it. He thought for a while and said seriously, "Give me the sugar-coated haws first, then I'll answer you." "Okay." The girl in the bamboo hat smiled and generously gave him the sugar-coated haws. Little Jing Kong took the sugar-coated haws. "I don't know." The girl in the bamboo hat was stunned. "What?" Little Jing Kong said innocently, "My answer. I don't know where his family is." He really didn't know. This was Jiao Jiao's home, and the bad brother-in-law was just a temporary brother-in-law, and he hadn't officially taken up the post yet. How could he know where the bad brother-in-law's family was? Little Jing Kong licked the sugar-coated haws and slurped them away. The girl in the bamboo hat was trembling with anger. Actually, what she wanted to find out was Gu Jiao's whereabouts, but she thought that a woman wouldn't be the head of a household, so she asked for the man's name. "You little rascal, how dare you trick me?" Her eyes turned cold, and she reached out her hand, coldly grabbing Little Jing Kong's shoulder. Little 8 was so scared that he jumped up, stood upright against the wall, and covered his eyes with his paws. In the blink of an eye, the little eagle spread its plump wings and flew into the air. The ferocity in the gerfalcon's bones was completely triggered at this moment. It didn't peck at the girl's hand, but directly aimed at the girl's bamboo hat. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with inner content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826 www.zhpqg.com/113226051. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhpqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 234. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find on the internet. After all, gerfalcons were not real domestic animals. They were wild. When they attacked people, they would not peck at them angrily like a few chicks. It rushed into the girl's bamboo hat, opened its hard beak, and fiercely pecked at the girl's eyes. The girl instinctively raised her hand to block it. Her eyes were blocked, but her neck was exposed. The little gerfalcons bit her neck. Ah! The girl screamed in pain and waved her hands. Although she pushed the gerfalcons away, she also waved her bamboo hat. Little Jing Kong heard the noise and turned his head. He looked at the scene and then at the girl's face. He was puzzled. The neighbors on both sides also heard the noise. They opened their doors and ran out. What happened? What happened? Who is it? The girl saw so many people coming at once. She did not have time to find fault with little Jing Kong. She covered her face with her sleeves and ran away. Are you okay? Uncle Lee came over and asked little Jing Kong. I'm fine. Little Jing Kong shook his head. After little Jing Kong went home, he honestly told them about Little Nine's pecking. Little Nine is not usually so fierce. I don't know what happened to Little Nine. Little Nine was a bird of prey. It was fierce, but it would not easily hurt people. Gu Jiao had some guesses in her heart. She looked at the candied haws in little Jing Kong's hand and asked, Did she give you the candied haws too? Little Jing Kong nodded. Yes, she asked me where my brother-in-law's house was. I told her that I don't know. Gu Jiao thought for a while and asked, Did she say who she was? No. Little Jing Kong shook his head, but I've seen her. She's a student at the girls' school. The girls' school was next to the medical center. Little Jing Kong would pass by the girls' school every time he went to the medical center from the Imperial College. He would often bump into students there. However, little Jing Kong did not know his name. That night, Xiao Lulang returned home. Gu Jiao told him about the students from the girls' school inquiring about him. Xiao Lulang was surprised. I don't know any students from the girls' school. Gu Jiao paused for a moment before asking, Could it be that you're so famous that people are attracted to you? Xiao Lulang shook his head. You should have gone to the Imperial College to look for me. The people who came to his door all asked for his address because they couldn't find him at the Imperial College. Gu Jiao roughly understood that this person was probably here for her. Gu Jiao thought of the vase, the kitchen knife, and the medical dispute. Did something happen? Xiao Lulang asked. Gu Jiao said calmly, Don't worry, I can handle it. She was just a little girl who only knew how to play dirty tricks behind her back. She couldn't even handle her with one finger. Xiao Lulang didn't insist on getting to the bottom of the matter. He took out a money bag from his wide sleeve and said, This is for this month's household expenses. Gu Jiao glared at him. Why are you still giving it to the household expenses? Don't you need to prepare for the court examination? His household expenses were all earned from copying books and writing articles for others. Although it wasn't physical work, it would still take up his study time and energy. Moreover, he didn't just study on a daily basis. He also had to tutor little Jing Kong, Gu Yan, and Gu Xiaoshan. Moreover, the learning progress and acceptance of these three people were different. The old chancellor could occasionally help, but it was mainly Xiao Lulang who had to take care of them. Gu Jiao knew that she didn't have the patience. If she was asked to tutor her younger brothers, she would beat them to the ground. Except for little Jing Kong. After all, his grades were better. However, little Jing Kong was obedient in front of Gu Jiao, but it didn't mean that he would be obedient in front of Xiao Lulang. The little guy was eloquent and had a lot of fallacious arguments. Gu Jiao understood in her heart. Gu Jiao said, "Don't work too hard." Xiao Lulang said, "But I also don't want you to work too hard." When he said this, he was stunned for a moment. What kind of nonsense was this? Why was it so mushy? Gu Jiao listened happily. She rested her chin on her hand and looked at him. Her eyebrows curved into a small crescent moon, and she said, "My husband is so nice." Xiao Lulang blushed. The next day, the Imperial College had classes and Qinghe Academy was on holiday. Xiao Lulang took the reluctant little Jingkong to school. Gu Xiaoshun and the youngest son of Master Zhao next door went to look for bird nests and asked Gu Yan if he wanted to go. Gu Yan didn't want to go. He wanted to go to the medical center to play today. Gu Yan hadn't been to Gu Jiao's small courtyard yet. Gu Jiao agreed. After breakfast, she took him out and said to Gu Xiaoshun, who was running fast in front of her, "Don't forget that you have to learn martial arts in the afternoon." "Got it, sister." Gu Xiaoshun and Zhao Xiaoyang ran away. Recently, the medical center was too busy to handle the number of patients and stop the milk tea business. Today, Gu Yan came at the right time. Gu Jiao asked him to sell milk tea. Gu Yan, who just wanted to be a quiet baby, was speechless. The medical center used to open at 9 in the morning. There would be doctors on duty at night. If they needed to, they could just knock on the door. Now that the business was better, the medical center opened an hour earlier. Soon, the medical center became busy. Gu Jiao was checking the herbs in the medicine cabinet. In ancient times, due to the limited storage conditions, the shelf life of the herbs was greatly shortened. Therefore, she had to check them from time to time. Halfway through the check, the little medical assistant beside her suddenly called her in a low voice, "Miss Gu." Gu Jiao turned her head and saw the little medicine boy giving her a look in the direction of the main hall. Gu Jiao looked over and saw Royal Prince and dressed in white standing there like the stars and the moon. Commandery Prince and had two sisters beside him. They were Zhuang Mengdai and Zhuang Yueshi. Gu Jiao knew Zhuang Mengdai. After all, she sold so many things to her. She could be considered as her little gold mine. As for Zhuang Yueshi, Gu Jiao wasn't familiar with her. The Zhuang sisters were wearing the girls' school clothes. The white dresses were made of goose yellow silk. The waist was very tight, showing off the beauty of a young girl. In terms of appearance, Zhuang Mengdai was better. Unfortunately, this girl was an idiot. Her temperament was very naive. Zhuang Yueshi wasn't ugly. However, compared to Gu Jinyu, there was still a gap. However, her makeup and temperament were exquisite. Zhuang Mengdai was overshadowed. In addition, Gu Jiao also noticed that Zhuang Yueshi was wearing a scarf around her neck. Gu Jiao's gaze fell on Zhuang Yueshi's neck. Zhuang Yueshi subconsciously raised her hand to cover her neck. "Eldest brother is here to see a doctor. Why are we here?" Zhuang Mengdai muttered unhappily. Although she liked to follow her eldest brother around, it was built on the premise that they were going on a sightseeing tour. "Then you go to school by yourself. I'll wait for eldest brother." Zhuang Yueshi said to Zhuang Mengdai. Commandery Prince and said to his two sisters, "No need. Go to class. Don't be late." Zhuang Yueshi pinched her fingers. "Then, brother, will you come to pick us up in the afternoon?" Commandery Prince and said, "I have something to do. The coachman will come to pick you up." Zhuang Yueshi glanced at Gu Jiao. She knew it. Her brother wouldn't just come to pick them up. Zhuang Yueshi walked out with a cold face. Gu Jiao looked at her small back as she walked away. She revealed a thoughtful expression. Commandery Prince unfinished his medicine. He came to take the medicine and also for a checkup. Before this, he had already come for a checkup a few times. You don't have to come for a checkup so frequently. Gu Jiao was just short of saying that it wasn't a serious illness that couldn't be cured. Commandery Prince and smiled and said, "I can see now. I extinguished the candles last night. I can see a little." A few nights ago, he could only feel the light. However, last night, he suddenly saw a blurry outline. He was too surprised. After a few more days, you can see more. Gu Jiao began to test his eyesight. Commandery Prince and stared at the strange drawing opposite him and wondered, "What is this? I didn't see this last time." Eyesight chart. She made it herself. "Did you make it especially for me?" Commandery Prince An's eyes lit up. Gu Jiao said, "You need to test your eyesight to see the specific effects." Commandery Prince An was overjoyed. "So, you made it especially for me." Gu Jiao, after the checkup. Commandery Prince An took the new medicine and left in a good mood. The medical center was busy until noon. At noon, she and Gu Yan had lunch in the medical center. She went to the kitchen to ask the kitchen to cook 2 dishes for Gu Yan. Gu Yan couldn't eat food with strong flavors. Usually, his family would accommodate his taste and eat light food. However, the people in the medical center had to work. If they didn't eat some oil and salt, they wouldn't have energy. "Then I'll cook some vegetables for young Master Gu and stew a Crucian carp tofu soup?" the cook asked. "Okay." Gu Jiao was satisfied with this arrangement. It should be enough for her and Gu Yan. After coming out of the kitchen, Gu Jiao didn't go back to the courtyard directly. Instead, she went to the back door of the girls' school. It was time to eat in the girls' school. The girls' school had a dining hall. The dining hall wasn't inside the school. Instead, one had to go out from the back door and walk to the opposite side of the street. The reason was that they didn't buy the shop next door. They had to change the dining hall into a brothel. The dining hall was rented in a restaurant opposite the back door. Zhuang Yueshi and Zhuang Mengdai walked to the dining hall. Zhuang Mengdai was dejected. "Sai, it's time for the exam again. It's so annoying. If we sit together during the exam, you can copy for me." Zhuang Yueshi despised. "It's arranged according to the results. Can you sit with me with your pig brain?" Zhuang Mengdai was angry. "How can you say that? If I'm a pig brain, what are you? We came from the same womb. If I'm a pig, so are you." Zhuang Yueshi couldn't be bothered with her. She walked past her. Zhuang Mengdai didn't want to be outdone. She ran in front of her. Humph. She ran a few steps and felt that she couldn't give up so soon. What if they were sitting together? She had to copy for them. Let me tell you, Zhuang Mengdai turned around and wanted to fight with her sister. However, Zhuang Yueshi was nowhere to be seen on the busy street. "Too much. I don't want you as my sister anymore." Zhuang Mengdai stomped her feet and walked away angrily. In a small alley near the clinic, Zhuang Yueshi was thrown to the ground by Gu Jiao. Zhuang Yueshi fell and hurt. She frowned and looked at Gu Jiao. "What are you doing?" Gu Jiao looked at her condescendingly. "It's you, isn't it?" Zhuang Yueshi's eyes flashed. "What's me? I don't understand what you're doing." Zhuang Yueshi stood up coldly with the help of the wall. "Really?" Gu Jiao raised her hand lightly and pulled off the scarf on her neck, revealing the newly scabbed wound. The wound oozed blood and coagulated and stuck to the scarf. When Gu Jiao pulled off the gauze, the scabbed wound was also torn off. Blood flowed out immediately. Gu Jiao was a doctor. She could see that the wound was less than 24 hours ago. Zhuang Yueshi stepped back and covered the wound. She looked at Gu Jiao in panic. Gu Jiao and Zhuang Yueshi met for the first time today. However, it was obvious that Zhuang Yueshi had been secretly observing her for a long time. Otherwise, she wouldn't have found out where she lived. Gu Jiao was not interested in why Zhuang Yueshi wanted to frame her. She didn't offend Zhuang Yueshi. However, Zhuang Yueshi kept making trouble for her. Therefore, the problem could only be Zhuang Yueshi herself. She took a step forward with cold eyes. Zhuang Yueshi had never seen such eyes. She couldn't help but step back. However, there was a wall behind her. She couldn't retreat. Gu Jiao's slender fingers touched her slender neck and stopped at the wound. It was as if she could break her neck if she moved slightly. She stroked her neck very gently. However, Zhuang Yueshi felt that she couldn't breathe. It was as if something was choking her. Gu Jiao said lightly, "Girl, I'll let you go this time because my grandaunt's surname is also Zhuang. However, it's only this time. Don't provoke me again. You can't afford to pay the price." Her voice was not loud. However, every word made Zhuang Yueshi feel great danger. After that, she let go of Zhuang Yueshi and walked away without looking back. Zhuang Yueshi fell to the ground. She was soaked in cold sweat. After a while, she found her voice again. She realized that she had lost face in front of Zhuang Yueshi. She roared, "Your grand aunt." So what if your grand aunt's surname is also Zhuang? My grand aunt is the Empress Dowager. She is the Empress Dowager. Gu Jiao ignored her and walked out of the alley. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with inner content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/8964-2_89642_113201903. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 235. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all here. At the end of the 3rd month, the envoy of the country of Liang arrived at the capital of Zhao. Grand Secretary Yuan, Honglu Temple official, and Marquis Xianping personally went to the city gate to welcome them. Originally, Marquis Xianping didn't want to come, but he didn't finish copying last time. The emperor said that if he went to welcome the envoy of the country of Liang, the task of copying would be cancelled out. Marquis Xianping reluctantly went to the city gate and slumped carelessly in the carriage. Even Grand Secretary Yuan almost couldn't stand it. However, when the envoy of the country of Liang arrived, Marquis Xianping's attitude changed completely. He got off the carriage and stood there calmly. Thousands of flowers bloomed like brocade. He had an imposing appearance and was as elegant as jade. It was no wonder that the emperor had him come to welcome the envoy. His face was the face of the country of Zhao. The officials from both sides exchanged greetings. Marquis Xianping usually didn't say much, so he naturally didn't say much at this time. Therefore, the outside world's evaluation of Marquis Xianping was always cold and reserved. The envoy of the country of Liang stayed in a garden of the imperial family, very close to the imperial palace. At night, the crown princess held a banquet in the Qilin Hall of the imperial palace to welcome the envoy of the country of Liang. Wang Fei, it's time to get up. Consort Rui Wang was sleeping soundly when she was suddenly shaken awake by female official Su. She opened her eyes in confusion. What is it? What happened? Female official Su looked at her confused appearance and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. There is a banquet tonight. You forgot. It's time to get up and wash up. Isn't it still early? Consort Rui Wang looked at the sky and continued to sleep. After being pregnant, she slept a lot more. Female official Su didn't dare to pull her and stayed by the bed to let her sleep for another hour before waking her up. Consort Rui Wang washed up and changed into a heavy Wang Fei auspicious dress. She put on a pearl hairpin and ring and entered the palace with a dark face. Third Prince Rui Wang had entered the palace early and had been following First Prince Ning Wang to receive the envoy. Rui Wang Fei saw him from afar and waved at him. He didn't see her. Princess Consort. Maid Su reminded her softly. Concubine Rui Wang sighed. I know. Rules, manners. The Emperor, Empress Xiao, and noble Consort Zhuang were on the steps of the Qilin Hall. Consort Shu was grounded, Consort Xian was sick, and the rest of the concubines were not qualified to attend this banquet. In the long hall, the envoy of the Liang state sat on the left, and the royal family and important ministers of the Zhao state sat on the right. Consort Rui Wang was sitting on a cushion, and Maid Su was sitting behind her on the wooden floor, ready to serve her at any time. Rui Wang came for a short while and was called away by the emperor. This time, the Liang Kingdom's royal family also came. Several princes were fighting to show their faces in front of the emperor and the Liang Kingdom's royal family. The banquet soon began. Tonight's banquet was organized by the crown prince consort. No matter how much Consort Rui Wang disliked Wen Linlang, she had to admit that her banquet was well organized. From the dishes to the decorations, from the staff to the programs, every step was flawless. After a few programs to liven things up, the crown prince consort arranged the highlight. To express our welcome to the various envoys, next, our Zhao State's consort Rui Wang and Zhao State's #1 palace musician Xie, will play a song. Fleeting Light, Reflected Shadow. Wait, wasn't it a solo performance? When did it become a duet? Fleeting Light was a piece of music from the Liang State. It was created by the #1 musician of the 6 states, Moon Shadow. The original song was divided into 2 parts. The first part was called Fleeting Light, and the second part was called Reflected Shadow. However, the score for Reflected Shadow was lost. This song was originally played with a guqin and a flute, but the flute was more suitable for Fleeting Light, and the guqin was more suitable for Reflected Shadow. If the guqin and flute played Fleeting Light, the guqin would be easily suppressed by the flute. Normal people would not know these details. Perhaps only Consort Rui Wang and a few people who were very skilled in music would understand this point. Was Wen Linlang deliberately making a fool of her? Just as this thought flashed through Consort Rui Wang's mind, she heard a palace servant report. Musician Xie suddenly fell and is injured, so he can't come. Everyone was shocked. Consort Rui Wang thought that she was going to play a solo, but who knew that from the Liang State side, a young man dressed in a navy blue robe stood up. I have long heard that Consort Rui Wang's guqin skills are unparalleled. This humble one is not talented, but I am willing to play a duet with Consort Rui Wang. This is... The emperor looked strangely at the young man who suddenly appeared. Prince Yu of the Liang State introduced. He is called Wu Ming, Lord Moonshadow's direct disciple. Everyone was shocked again, and their eyes revealed envy and admiration. Lord Moonshadow had always been a legend in the 6 states. They probably would not be able to see that lord in their lifetime, but to be able to see his direct disciple was also a great honor. Oh, so it was not to make a fool of her, but to make her a supporting character. They really knew how to make the best use of everything. Consort Rui Wang did not say a word. Wu Ming held the flute, cupped his hands, and said, "Consort Rui Wang, please." Consort Rui Wang gritted her teeth. "Bring the guqin." Yes. Female official Su went outside the hall to bring the guqin case. Someone had already set up a table and cushion in the center of the hall. Consort Rui Wang took her place. Female official Su opened the guqin case, and then she was stunned. This was not the consort's guqin. Consort Rui Wang saw that she did not understand, so she also glanced sideways. With just one glance, she almost fainted. Where was her Chiu Yu guqin? How did it become the Fushi guqin? The 2 gyukins were only different in style, but the sound was the same. But she was used to using her own guqin, and she never used a fake one. However, she also recognized that this was Gu Jiao's guqin, because the burnt part at the end of the guqin was too iconic, and the word Fushi was actually engraved on the body of the guqin. It was too much to fake it. Her memory was still fresh. The guqin case was hers. Of course, she did not think that Gu Jiao coveted her guqin, so she secretly switched their guqin. It must be that little eunuch who made a mistake. Oh, your Zhao country is so poor that you have to use a burnt guqin? The one who spoke was a general of the Liang country. The Liang country status was above the Zhao country, so the envoys did not put the Zhao country in their eyes at all. A few words of ridicule were already considered light. A civil official next to the general echoed, "If the Zhao country lacks gyukins, our Liang country can give you a few for free." The envoys all laughed, and it was a roar of laughter. Consort Rui Wang was so angry that she wanted to smash their heads. Consort Zhuang's expression became a bit ugly. This talent show was actually her recommendation to the crown princess in front of Empress Xiao and the concubines in the harem, so that the crown princess would not have a chance to refuse. Her intentions were good. She hoped that Consort Rui Wang would shine at the banquet and fight for their family. But before she could fight for it, she lost face first. What is third daughter-in-law thinking? She can't even bring out a good guqin? Consort Zhuang was furious. Empress Xiao was also angry. Although she and Prince Ning's family fought to the death, that was behind closed doors. How could she lose face in another country? The emperor's expression also darkened. Using a broken guqin to entertain the envoys of the Liang country would not only make a fool of themselves, but it would also be easy for people to talk about it. The Liang country originally came to cut the fat meat of the Zhao country. Now, they had a reason to cut it even more fiercely. This servant will go and change a guqin. Maid Su said. It's too late. Consort Rui Wang shook her head. They had already lost face. If they changed a guqin, it would only make them seem more cowardly and disgraceful. Consort Rui Wang closed her eyes. She did not care if Lord Yu Ying's disciple was still willing to play with her family. She took the lead and played the first note. It was only one note, but it stunned everyone present. Wu Ming was the fastest to react. When he saw Consort Rui Wang begin to play, he quickly spun the flute in his palm and put it to his lips to keep up with Consort Rui Wang's rhythm. This song was created by Wu Ming's teacher, and Wu Ming had practiced it countless times. Not to mention that he had the advantage in musical instruments. No matter how one looked at it, he would be the dominant one. Because she was not familiar with this guqin, and because of the disturbance in her thoughts, Consort Rui Wang did not get into the mood at first. But gradually, she was attracted by the sound of the guqin. How could there be such a good guqin? How could there be such a beautiful sound of the guqin? The sound of Fushi's guqin suddenly overshadowed the sound of the flute. Everyone's expression changed. Empress Xiao murmured, What kind of guqin is this? Was the Fushi guqin you heard in the Liang country so beautiful? When the crown princess was young, she went to the Liang country with the Zhao country's envoy group. The crown princess looked at Consort Rui Wang in the center of the hall with a complicated expression. I've only seen it, but I don't have the honor to hear it. After the song ended, the hall was dead silent. Obviously, it was too beautiful. Everyone was still immersed in the sound of Consort Rui Wang's guqin. Suddenly, the prince of the Liang country stood up and took the lead to applaud Consort Rui Wang. Wonderful, wonderful. The two consecutive claps were for Consort Rui Wang. Although the song was good, the flute did not occupy much of it. All of their attention was attracted by the melodious sound of the guqin. Those who mocked Consort Rui Wang just now did not dare to say anything. If this was a lousy guqin, there was probably no guqin in the world. Wu Ming looked at Consort Rui Wang and then looked at the guqin in front of her. Even my master's lunar shadow Fushi guqin is not as good as this. May I ask Consort Rui Wang, where did you get this guqin? Lunar Shadow Fushi guqin was the most perfect imitation guqin in the 6 countries. What kind of guqin was better than this? Was it really Fushi? If other people said this, it might not have any weight. However, Wu Ming was Lunar Shadow's direct disciple. The emperor suddenly smiled. Old Third's wife had made him proud again. He could not say that she took the wrong one. Consort Rui Wang thought for a moment and said seriously, I borrowed it from friend. Wu Ming, that friend is Consort Rui Wang. Sorry, I can't tell you. Wu Ming cupped his hands and returned to his seat. With the wonderful performance of Consort Rui Wang and the Fushi guqin, the crown princess's carefully arranged repertoire all became dull. Everyone only remembered this guqin and the person who played it, Consort Rui Wang. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/113199398. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 236. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. Consort Rui Wang's performance was so good that even Rui Wang's face was shining. The emperor called the third prince over and praised him. Rui Wang was overjoyed. Among all the princes, Rui Wang was actually the most inconspicuous one. In terms of uniqueness, he wasn't as special as his eldest brother, Prince Ning. In terms of nobility, he wasn't as valuable as his second brother, the crown prince. In terms of intelligence, he wasn't as smart as the fourth prince. In terms of appearance, he wasn't as good as the fifth prince. Since childhood, he had always been a prince who was easily overlooked. However, since the first day of a new year, he seemed to have started to get lucky. Go back and accompany your wife. Pregnancy is hard, the emperor said to Rui Wang. After that, he muttered a few more words. Who arranged for her to play the guqin? What happens when a pregnant person gets tired? Noble consort Zhuang smiled. It's this concubine's fault. This concubine won't do it again. Although the emperor didn't approve of letting the third prince's wife play the guqin while pregnant, he had to admit that if it weren't for today's performance, the Zhao state wouldn't have been able to gain face. Noble consort Zhuang also understood this point, so she decisively admitted it. As for the crown prince's wife's contribution, she didn't mention it at all. The crown prince's wife had unintentionally planted a willow in the shade. In terms of strategy, it was understandable that the crown prince's wife used consort Rui Wang to let the Liang state's musicians show off. This was a way to treat guests, and also a way to protect their rights and interests. If the Liang state was happy, wouldn't the subsequent negotiations be easier? The only thing was that consort Rui Wang was wronged. However, as an imperial daughter-in-law, she still had to have the awareness of making sacrifices. However, no one expected that consort Rui Wang would take out a broken guqin. This was undoubtedly humiliating the other party. You want me to play the role of your wife? All right, you're only worthy of my broken guqin. No one had expected this turn of events. However, an even bigger reversal was to come. The heart of the envoy from the state of Liang went up and down. What a wonderful welcome banquet! As for the guqin suppressing the flute, only people like consort Rui Wang and Wu Ming, who were proficient in music, understood. In the eyes of others, for the state of Zhao to come up with such an excellent piece, it must mean that the state of Liang was very important. What was a top-notch feast? This was it. After the banquet, consort Rui Wang was escorted out by maid Su. The emperor had enjoyed himself to the fullest tonight, so it was inevitable that he would drink a bit too much. Rui Wang sent him back to his sleeping quarters first, and then went outside the palace gates to meet up with consort Rui Wang. Just as she walked out of the Qilin Hall, a familiar voice called out to her, "Consort Rui Wang, please wait." Consort Rui Wang turned around. Female official Su, who was holding the zither case, also stopped in her tracks. It was John Doe. John Doe looked younger under the candlelight. Perhaps it was because he had just arrived, so it was inevitable that he would put on airs at the banquet. After leaving the banquet, he felt much more relaxed. He bowed to consort Rui Wang. Among the 6 countries, the etiquette of the state of Liang and the state of Zhao was relatively similar. This might be because the state of Liang exported a lot of culture to the state of Zhao. Consort Rui Wang nodded slightly in return. What can I do for you, Lord John Doe? John Doe changed his arrogance before the ensemble and said politely, Consort Rui Wang, you can call me John Doe. Consort Rui Wang nodded slightly. She heard it, but whether she would call him, that was another matter. John Doe looked at the zither in female official Sue's hands. Can Consort Rui Wang sell this zither to me? Consort Rui Wang was stunned by his sudden request. She looked him up and down and said, I said this is my friend zither. How could she sell her friend zither? Didn't this person even understand this truth? It was simply a rude request. John Doe understood that his request was unreasonable, but he really wanted this zither. Consort Rui Wang, please pass on my message. The price is negotiable. Consort Rui Wang looked at him as if he was an idiot and turned to leave. John Doe looked at her back. Consort Rui Wang, I sincerely ask for the zither. Consort Rui Wang, please fulfill my request. Consort Rui Wang would not do anything to make things difficult for Gu Jiao. This was a good zither. If Gu Jiao wanted to sell it, she would have sold it long ago. Next door was the women's school, which was full of daughters of aristocratic families. Gu Jiao did not have to worry about not being able to sell the zither. This John Doe is really annoying. Consort Rui Wang walked away in a huff. John Doe looked at her back unwillingly. Prince Yu and his wife of the Liang Kingdom also walked out of the hall. Seeing him shouting at Consort Rui Wang, they could not help but frown slightly. John Doe was a court musician of the Liang Kingdom and was deeply doted on by the king of the Liang Kingdom. That was why he was qualified to accompany them. But in terms of political connections, he could not help at all. He was purely playing around. Prince Yu said sternly, John Doe, pay attention to your identity. This is not the Liang Kingdom. John Doe turned around and saluted. Prince Consort, I have been rude. What were you saying to Consort Rui Wang just now? Consort Yu asked. Consort Yu was a dignified and gentle woman. Her temper was not as cold as Prince Yu's. John Doe said, I want to buy the zither in Consort Rui Wang's hands. Consort Yu did not ask how he could make such a rude request. Instead, she said, Why do you want that zither? John Doe said, I suspect that it is a real fushi. But looking at Consort Rui Wang's reaction, she doesn't seem to know. If she knew that it was a real fushi, would she still let a servant carry it? She treated that zither like an ordinary zither. There was not a trace of flaunting in her eyes. The others in the Zhao Kingdom should not know either. Are you sure? Consort Yu asked. Wu Ming nodded. I'm sure. The reason why Master can make the best imitation zither is because he has seen the real fushi zither and heard the sound of the fushi zither. I was still young at that time, so I didn't go in. I just stood outside the curtain and listened to a song. I will never forget the sound of the zither in my life. Consort Yu was puzzled. But why was the fushi zither burned? And the two words fushi? John Doe thought for a moment and guessed. Those two words should have been engraved at the back. As for why it was burned black, I don't understand. Could it be that someone used the fushi zither as firewood and burned it? Could it be that wasteful? Consort Yu looked at Prince Yu. Does Consort Rui Wang know the owner of the fushi zither? Prince Yu frowned. I don't know. He looked at John Doe. Have you seen the owner of the fushi zither? John Doe shook his head regretfully. I have not seen him. Master has seen him and has drawn many portraits of him. But Master has always regarded those portraits as treasures and does not allow any of us to peek. Prince Yu asked, You don't even know if it is a man or a woman. John Doe spread out his hands. Anyway, I don't know. Prince Yu had a headache. If it was really the fushi zither, then he was very tempted. Everyone knew that the king of the Liang Kingdom was good at music. If he could get the fushi zither, he would definitely gain the king's favor. Consort Yu looked at her husband and grabbed his arm. She shook her head gently. Don't force it. Prince Yu's expression instantly softened. He said with a smile, I know. Madam, don't worry. I won't force it. Consort Yu thought for a moment and still felt that it was inappropriate. It is fate to be able to listen to the Fushi zither. It is better not to disturb him. Don't you also like the zither? I will buy it for you. Not for the king. Prince Yu was famous for doting on his wife. Consort Yu shook her head. A gentleman does not take what others like. Prince Yu held his wife's hand. Okay, I will listen to you. John Doe was dumbfounded. No, Your Highness, is it really good for you to be so unprincipled? Consort Yu nodded and said, It is getting late. Let's go back and see how Ming-er is doing. Ming-er was the son of Prince Yu and his wife. He was 10 years old this year and had followed them to the Zhao kingdom. In fact, this was not the first time Prince Yu and his wife had visited the Zhao kingdom. As early as 5 years ago, Consort Yu was still pregnant at that time. They only found out that she was pregnant halfway through the journey. It was too late to send her back. Moreover, Prince Yu was not at ease with her going back alone. The two stayed in the Zhao kingdom for a short period of time. The envoys had left, but the two continued to stay. They planned to return to the Liang kingdom after giving birth. 4 years ago, Consort Yu gave birth to a son in the Zhao kingdom. However, it was said that he died at birth. Now, this child called Ming-er was the couple's youngest son. After losing a child, they treated this child especially well. The last time they came to the Zhao kingdom, they did not bring him. This time, they brought him. Fortunately, this child did not disappoint. Although he was only 10 years old, he was a gifted and intelligent child prodigy. He had finished learning the 4 books and 5 classics, and was also very good at mathematics. The only problem was that he was too delicate and his body was a little weak. In the past few days, Prince Yu had brought him out to run horses for a while. When he turned around, he began to cough. Prince Yu, don't worry about Ming. He will be fine in a while. Consort Yu, you are not allowed to run horses with him in the future. The wind is so strong. Prince Yu, I know. The couple's voices gradually faded away. John Doe sighed and followed them out of the palace. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/113175904. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 237. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with content that can't be found online can be found here. After the banquet, the Crown Princess also returned to the Eastern Palace. The Crown Prince's expression was somewhat gloomy. Your Highness. The Crown Princess walked forward. What are you thinking about? The Crown Prince sighed. The third prince has been in the limelight too much recently. Actually, it wasn't that the third prince was in the limelight too much. It was that he wasn't in the limelight enough. Rui Wang herself was nothing to be afraid of. She didn't have much ambition and only focused on following Prince Ning. However, the more the third prince was favored, the more attention Prince Ning would receive from the emperor. He was originally the eldest son, so he was different from the other princes. The emperor brought Prince Ning with him to Jiangnan and left him in the court to supervise the country. It seemed that he had benefited, but who could say that the emperor's heart wouldn't favor his eldest son along the way? The crown princess looked at him sincerely. Don't worry, Your Highness. The envoy from the Liang kingdom has arrived. This is a good opportunity for Your Highness to shine in front of Father. Your Highness will definitely win father's favor more than anyone else. I will help your Highness. Rui Wang had originally planned to go to Gu Jiao after leaving the palace. However, it was already so late. She thought that Gu Jiao should have already gone back, so she decided to go find her during the day. Gu Jiao didn't know what had happened, but she was indeed not in the medical center. She was standing under the locust tree at the entrance of the Imperial College, quietly waiting for Xiao Lulang to finish school. The evening class was mainly for the teacher to answer questions and the students to study by themselves. If they had questions, they would go to the podium to ask the teacher. If they didn't have questions, they would work on their own in their seats. Now that the evening class was over, there were supervisors coming out of the Imperial College one after another. Many people were familiar with Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao was not shy about her appearance. She often sent little Jing Kong and Xiao Lulang to school. Little Jing Kong and Xiao Lulang were not shy about her appearance either. They generously let others know that she was their sister and wife. At first, when everyone saw Gu Jiao, they were just curious about her appearance. Occasionally, they would take a few more glances at her, but they would not take the initiative to greet her. However, as Xiao Yolang's reputation rose in the Imperial College, more and more people nodded to Gu Jiao in greeting. Gu Jiao clearly felt that her status had changed. This kind of change was not brought about by her treatment. It was because Xiao Lulang had made a name for himself in his studies that the Imperial College, these high and mighty geniuses of the Imperial College, were willing to take a proper look at her, a little peasant woman from the countryside. Although it was just a simple greeting, it transcended social class. How many people couldn't break through the class barrier above their heads in their entire lives? Therefore, in ancient times, studying was indeed the easiest way to change a person's fate. It was not that farming and business were bad, but for a carp to leap over the dragon's gate, it had to rely on studying. Classes have ended in Huixin Hall, but there are a few supervisors who are asking Xiao Huiyuan for advice. You may have to wait a little longer. Seeing that Gu Jiao had been waiting for a long time, a supervisor kindly said to Gu Jiao, "Do you want me to inform Xiao Huiyuan?" Gu Jiao politely said, "Thank you, I'm not in a hurry." "Then I'll go first," the supervisor said and left. Gu Jiao continued to wait for Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang did not know that Gu Jiao was waiting for him outside. He was explaining to a few supervisors the key points that they did not understand in today's class. Some supervisors who were not from Huixin Hall also came to listen to him. The progress of each grade was different, but they could all understand what Xiao Lulang said. The seniors did not feel that it was too simple, and the juniors did not feel that it was too profound. They could all learn something. Xiao Lulang was not so good at the beginning. He had to tutor little Jing Kong, who knew everything, and also tutor Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshun, who did not know anything in primary school. Gradually, he developed a powerful skill of making simple topics in-depth and complicated topics simple. The palace examination was approaching. Everyone's time was not enough. Everyone who participated in the palace examination was their opponent. At this juncture, no one was willing to help their classmates improve their grades. At first, Xiao Lulang only taught Lin Xingya and Feng Lin. Occasionally, their classmates would ask Xiao Lulang questions, and Xiao Lulang patiently answered them. Gradually, more and more people came to look for Xiao Lulang. Even the seniors from Huixin Hall came to ask him for advice. Xiao Lulang had an advantage. He did not have any selfish motives when he taught. He never worried that his disciples would starve to death. He did not put on airs. Of course, he was also good-looking. He was pleasing to the eye and had a pleasant voice. In short, more and more people came to listen to Xiao Yolang's lectures. Those who thought that he got to where he was today by luck were fewer and fewer. His knowledge, conduct, and character were all very admirable. Of course, he did not pay attention to everyone. There were female students who came to ask him for advice. They were rejected by him without any grace. Many of them cried on the spot and swore that they would never look for him again. Humph, what's there to be proud of for a poor boy from the countryside? They came to ask you for advice because they think highly of you. You really think you're a delicious cake. That's right. Even Royal Prince An is not as arrogant as you. Royal Prince An appeared in the medical hall more often recently. He was met by the daughters of the female school a few times. When someone asked him for advice, he would try his best to answer. If he could not answer, he would politely say that it was inconvenient. The two of them were ranked first in the spring imperial examination. It was inevitable that people would compare them. Look, this is how a son of an aristocratic family should be. Xiao Liulang's reputation in the capital was polarized. The supervisor of the Imperial College thought that he was approachable and did not hide anything. The female students scolded him as a little cripple who had not seen the world and did not know the immensity of heaven and earth just because he had some achievements. That's all for today. I should go home. Everyone should also go back and rest. Xiao Lulang finished talking about another important point and closed the book. Everyone knew that he had a little wife at home. He was afraid that his little wife would be anxious from waiting. Everyone was not selfish or tactless. Xiao Lulang was already giving them face by being willing to spend time talking to them. There was no reason to keep Xiao Lulang here. Brother Xiao, many thanks. Many thanks, Brother Xiao. Everyone thanked him. He was the youngest, so calling him brother was a form of respect. Xiao Lulang nodded and walked out of the Imperial College with his walking stick. He saw Gu Jiao and his eyes moved. He walked forward and said, "Why are you here? Have you been waiting for a long time?" "No, I just got here." Gu Jiao shook her head. Xiao Lulang looked at the small holes in the ground from her steps and pretended to believe her. He took her small basket and carried it on his back. If this was in his previous life, wouldn't he be carrying his girlfriend's backpack? He was not worried that people would laugh at him. Gu Jiao thought about it and felt quite happy. "Here." Xiao Lulang suddenly handed over something wrapped in craft paper. "What is it?" Gu Jiao took it and opened the layers of craft paper. She found a piece of jerky covered in syrup. Gu Jiao looked at him in a daze. "It's for you." Xiao Lulang looked straight ahead. "Don't you like to eat it?" The jerky was given to him by one of the supervisors in Haoxing Hall. This type of jerky covered in syrup was their family's secret recipe. They didn't do business and only ate it for the children. A few days ago, Xiao Lulang gave him a lecture. To express his gratitude, he gave Xiao Lulang a piece of jerky. Xiao Lulang took it back and gave it to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao gave it to her great-aunt and 3 younger brothers. She only tasted a small bite of the syrup and meat stuck on the craft paper. "Oh, why is it so delicious?" Gu Jiao, who didn't have much interest in food, was stunned by the taste. However, Gu Jiao didn't say anything. She didn't expect him to find out. "Where did you buy it?" Gu Jiao asked. "A classmate gave it to me," he said. Actually, he asked his classmate for it. This type of meat wasn't easy to make. He asked for it last time and only made it today. The dignified Xiao Huiyuan was actually greedy for food and asked his classmate for meat. He really wasn't afraid of being laughed at if word got out. Gu Jiao wasn't willing to eat it since it was given to her by someone else. Xiao Lulang knew it would be like this. He said to her, "I left some for them. This is yours." Gu Jiao looked at him. She suddenly pinched the craft paper with both hands and broke the jerky into 2 pieces. She handed the bigger piece to him. "You eat too." Xiao Lulang didn't refuse. He took the jerky with the craft paper. Gu Jiao began to enjoy her food. The jerky itself was spicy, but the syrup on the outside was very sweet. It shouldn't be ordinary white sugar. It was more like honey, so it had a slightly sour taste. It was really delicious. Gu Jiao held the jerky and ate it in small bites, like a little squirrel looking for food. Xiao Lulang walked beside her and looked at her. Only when she finished eating and smacked her lips, as if she hadn't had enough, did he pass the untouched half of the jerky to her. As if he was afraid that she would refuse, he said, "I can't eat anymore. You eat it." "Oh." Gu Jiao didn't say anything. She took the jerky from his hand, but before eating, she broke off a small piece and fed it to him. Although the envoys of the Liang state had entered the capital, it didn't have much to do with the common people. Everyone still did what they were supposed to do. Little Jing Kong got up early in the morning to practice martial arts. Gu Jiao didn't have to make breakfast today, so senior servant Fang did it. Gu Jiao accompanied little Jing Kong to practice the basics for a while. When she wiped the little guy's sweat, Gu Jiao asked the question in her heart, "Why do you always practice these things?" Little Jing Kong tilted his head and said, "I only know how to do these." Gu Jiao. Oh no, she only cared about the child's learning and forgot that martial arts also needed to be improved step by step. The first few years in the temple should be focused on teaching basic skills. Once the basic skills were solid, they would slowly teach some fist techniques and martial arts routines. Little Jing Kong left the mountain early, so he didn't have time to learn martial arts. Gu Jiao knew a bit of Tai Chi and 5 animal frolics, but she wasn't proficient in them. In her previous life, she only knew how to kill and steal from people, so it wasn't suitable to teach them to children. It seemed that she had to find a martial arts teacher for the little guy. The first person that came to Gu Jiao's mind was Gu Chengfeng. Recently, she had exploited him a lot, so it was easier for her to think of him. However, that guy was a thief. What if he taught little Jing Kong to be a thief if she wasn't careful? The image of little Jing Kong wearing a mask and acting as a ninja thief flashed through Gu Jiao's mind. She decisively shook her head. Gu Jiao then thought of Gu Chongqing. Gu Chongqing was a good person, but he was too busy. He was in the military camp all year round, so it was rare to see him. Gu Jiao secretly kept this in mind. After breakfast, Xiao Lulang and little Jing Kong went to school at the Imperial College. Gu Yan and Gu Shaoshun went to school at the Qinghe Academy. Gu Jiao went to the medical center. Not long after she arrived at the medical center, concubine Rui Wang came. She was holding the zither case in her hands. In fact, she knew that the zither was very precious after she played it yesterday. The reason why she didn't show it in public was that she didn't want to attract too much attention. The two of them went to Gu Jiao's courtyard. Concubine Rui Wang told her that she took the wrong zither. "My little eunuch didn't do his job well. I'm sorry." Gu Jiao already understood what happened. She shook her head. "It's my negligence." Little Jiangli was a child after all. She should have checked the zither case. Concubine Rui Wang held Gu Jiao's hand. "Then I really should thank you for your negligence. If it wasn't for your zither yesterday, I would have been a duet." Concubine Rui Wang was also competitive, especially when it came to music. She was not willing to be a duet. When Lin Lang must have known this, so she didn't tell me in advance. I was going to play with someone. And musician Xie, why did he suddenly fall and hurt himself? I think she didn't want musician Xie to play. She had already asked around. Musician Xie was not injured. Humph. She wants to sacrifice me to please the envoys from the Liang kingdom. After Rui Wang returned home last night, she had already comforted concubine Rui Wang. She said that from a diplomatic point of view, the crown princess made the right move. It was just that concubine Rui Wang was wronged. A princess could marry into a distant country for the sake of the relationship between the two kingdoms. As a princess of the imperial family, it didn't seem like a big deal to sacrifice herself for the sake of the big picture. In the end, the crown princess was a politician, but concubine Rui Wang was not. Therefore, the two of them had conflicting views. Concubine Rui Wang was furious. Even her man was speaking up for that woman. Why doesn't anyone think that she did something wrong? Shouldn't she have told me about this matter first? Doesn't she think that she doesn't respect me enough? Concubine Rui Wang's views were very advanced in ancient times. She had awakened a part of her feminist consciousness. "Then, are you good at playing?" Gu Jiao asked. Concubine Rui Wang raised her chin and said smugly, "Of course I'm good." She was still very reserved in the Fu and didn't dare to be too ostentatious. However, in front of Gu Jiao, she was very relaxed. The little excitement and smugness that she had suppressed for an entire night were all expressed. Didn't you see that their eyes were wide open? Prince Yu even applauded for me. That Lord Yu Ying's direct disciple is only SOSO. Look, look, look. Her little tail was so proud. The gloominess from before had completely disappeared. However, concubine Rui Wang was smug, but she didn't forget to deny it. Actually, it was all thanks to your zither. With my own zither skills, it would have been very difficult for me to gain an advantage in that song. Gu Jiao wasn't too surprised. After seeing the golden abacus and house deeds in Little Jingkong, Gu Jiao had long stopped treating this lousy zither as a normal lousy zither. That musician from the state of Liang actually wanted to buy your zither, but I refused. Concubine Rui Wang looked at her as she spoke. Yes. Gu Jiao nodded in agreement. The zither was given to me by Little Jingkong. I'm not selling it. Concubine Rui Wang breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that she was right to refuse John Doe yesterday. Her gaze fell on the zither. By the way, what kind of zither is this? It has Fushi engraved on it. Could it really be that Fushi zither? Concubine Rui Wang thought that Gu Jiao would deny it. Unexpectedly, Gu Jiao thought for a moment and said seriously, maybe. Concubine Rui Wang. The medical center was not busy in the morning. Concubine Rui Wang sat in Gu Jiao's courtyard for an hour and chatted with her for a while. Concubine Rui Wang only said one thing about the envoys. After all, she was not a politician and she had no ambition, so she didn't care much about the envoy's visit. On the contrary, because Concubine Rui Wang and Concubine Yao were both pregnant, Gu Jiao was also interested in this topic. The two talked about pregnancy and the baby. After that, the medical center became busy, and Concubine Rui Wang also returned home. On the other side, in a magnificent courtyard in the Imperial Garden, there were low coughs coming from inside from time to time. The servants guarding outside the door all looked dignified and didn't dare to breathe loudly. Inside the room, Concubine Yu held her son, whose face was red from coughing, and asked worriedly and anxiously, "When will His Highness come back?" The attendant said, replying to Your Highness, His Highness and the ministers of Zhao country are quarreling fiercely. This servant can't see His Highness at all. Negotiations between two sides were like this. They were always quarreling, and when it was serious, they would even flip the table. Concubine, you didn't care about what they were quarreling about. She was only worried about her son's illness. Her son had been coughing for 10 days. The imperial physician they brought had been using medicine, but he obviously couldn't cure her son's illness. The attendant hesitated and asked, "How about this servant goes to the palace to see Empress Xiao and ask her to send an imperial physician from Zhao country?" Concubine, you thought for a while. Wait, don't go to the palace first. At an important moment in the negotiation, she was worried about putting her son's life in the other party's hands. Although the imperial family of Zhao country would definitely not harm her son, if someone wanted to use the imperial family of Zhao country to rebel, her son would be in danger. Furthermore, even if no one rebelled, the imperial family of Zhao country raising the price by treating her son was not beneficial to the Liang country's negotiation. After all, she had been a princess for so many years, so she had more thoughts than ordinary people. Concubine, you ordered, go and find out which famous medical centers are there in the capital. Be careful not to be discovered. Yes. The attendant changed into the clothes of an ordinary manservant and left the garden without being noticed. 2 hours later, he returned. Princess, this servant has inquired. There are 3 largest medical centers in the capital: Lingji Hall, Tongda Hall, and Huichun Hall. There is also a miracle hall. It is said that their medical skills are not bad. Concubine, you asked, which is the nearest medical center? The attendant said, Miracle Hall. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642_896422826/1131729774. HTML Genius, memorize this website's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 238. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. Jiang Shi's recovery was a pleasant surprise. Gu Jiao prepared to perform the last operation on him. This was only a minor operation. After that, he could rest in peace and did not need to be operated on again. Gu Jiao had just put on sterile gloves when Princess Yu brought her son to the door. In order to hide her identity, Princess Yu wore the dress of an ordinary noblewoman. She only wore 2 or 3 pearl hairpins on her head. But even so, those 2 or 3 hairpins were extremely precious in the eyes of the common people. The second boss personally received her. The second boss had good eyesight. This madam's complexion was rosy and did not seem to be ill at all. However, the 10-year-old child in her arms was pale and coughed softly from time to time. He said, "May I ask if this young master is here to see a doctor?" The chamberlain stepped forward and stood between him and his master. How could the common people be qualified to speak to the princess of the Liang country? The status of the Liang country was higher than that of the Zhao country. The princess of the Liang country was naturally more valuable than the princess of the Zhao country. Not to mention a small medical center owner, even an official of the imperial court may not be qualified to speak to his princess. Mother Ming felt uncomfortable. He pulled on Princess Yu's sleeve and leaned his small body softly in her arms. Princess, you did not have time to talk to the second boss. She touched her son's forehead to comfort him. Don't be afraid. We are at the medical center. There will be a doctor to treat you soon. The second boss touched his nose embarrassedly. It seemed that the other party was not easy to get along with. After opening the medical center for so many years, he had seen countless people. He had seen all kinds of people. Naturally, he would not feel uncomfortable because of this. He politely looked at the chamberlain and said, "May I ask what is wrong with the young master? Tell me the symptoms so that I can recommend a suitable doctor for the young master." "Who is the most skilled doctor here?" the chamberlain asked bluntly. "That must be his Xiaogu." But his Xiaogu was performing an operation on Jiang Shi and could not come. What's more, the child's illness was not an emergency. The second boss thought for a while and called Dr. Song over. "Song Dafu, you check this little gongzi." Dr. Song said to Princess Yu and her son, "Please come inside. You're the best doctor in the clinic?" The servant looked at him suspiciously. "You don't look very old. You're only 20 years old, right? You can't even afford to hire an experienced doctor." How did the reputation of your medical center come about? In the eyes of ordinary people, a doctor's medical skills were often linked to his age. The older he was, the more experience he had. However, those who had seen Gu Jiao knew that this was not absolute. Gu Jiao was the youngest doctor in the clinic, but no one doubted her medical skills. Dr. Song didn't want to argue with the patient right now, but he was not as tactful as the second boss. So he said, "I usually treat children, so I have a lot of experience in this area. But in terms of medical skills, I'm indeed not ranked as the most skilled doctor. But Miss Gu is busy now. If you're not in a hurry, you can wait in the lobby." The chamberlain was about to get angry when he heard this. Even the Liang country's emperor didn't dare to neglect my princess. "You're just a small doctor. I think you're too arrogant." "You're dismissed." Princess Yu said. The chamberlain. "Yes. How long will that person take?" Princess Yu asked Dr. Song. Dr. Song said, "Soon, it's a small operation. It'll be done soon. Princess, you nodded. Okay, I'll wait. The Chamberlain whispered, Princess, Princess, you gave him a look that told him to shut up. The Chamberlain didn't say anything. Gu Jiao didn't let Princess Yu wait for too long. She came out in a quarter and a half. When Princess Yu saw that it was a 15-year-old girl, she realized that the doctor had indeed said Miss Gu and not Dr. Gu. But she was a little too young. Gu Jiao was used to this kind of questioning gaze. She calmly brought the person into the consultation room. She first checked the child's pulse, then took out a clean tongue depressor from the jar on the table. Open your mouth. Ming had never been examined like this before and was a little scared. Princess, you also looked at Gu Jiao strangely. Gu Jiao said, this won't hurt. I have to press your tongue to see your throat. Hearing this, Princess Yu was relieved. Be good, listen to the doctor. Gu Jiao didn't like to be used with tongue depressors when she was young. Too much pressure would make her feel uncomfortable. Her movements were quick and gentle. Before Ming could feel uncomfortable, she had already taken out the tongue depressor. The tonsils were a little red and swollen. Gu Jiao took out the stethoscope and hung it on her ear. Undress. Princess Yu had never seen such a strange thing, an examination method, but she just thought that it was an original invention of the clinic and didn't think much of it. She went to undress her son, but her son grabbed her wrist. Men and women should not touch each other. I will not undress in front of her. Since ancient times, there was a saying that men and women should not sit together when they were 7 years old. He was already 10 years old and was a man. Gu Jiao looked at him fiercely. You have to undress whether you want to or not. Especially a female hooligan. Ming who didn't listen to the doctor when they came to the clinic? Ming-er's clothes were successfully removed. He looked at Gu Jiao in humiliation as she used a strange thing to listen to his chest and back. He felt that he was being touched all over. How shameful. Pneumonia. Gu Jiao gave the diagnosis. Is it serious? Princess Yu asked worriedly. Gu Jiao took off the stethoscope. Mild pneumonia, not too serious. Take some medicine first. Princess Yu frowned. But he has been coughing for more than 10 days. She meant that coughing for more than 10 days was not serious. Gu Jiao understood, but Gu Jiao couldn't go against her heart and say that her son's condition was serious. His life would be in danger immediately. Pneumonia was considered serious in ancient times, but it was not a problem for her. She had anti-inflammatory medicine. Gu Jiao said, it will slowly spread to the lungs. He has to take medicine seriously from now on. Otherwise, he would have to be on an intravenous drip. Gu Jiao didn't say anything about this. Gu Jiao stamped the written list and handed it to Princess Yu. Go to the counter and pay the bill. I will give you the medicine later. Princess Consort Yu took the list and left, half believing it. Although this little girl looked like an experienced doctor, she didn't dare to believe that she could cure her son's illness so easily. Princess Yu took her son out. Gu Jiao opened the small medicine box. There was children's cough syrup in it. It was a medicine independently developed by the Research Institute. It was safer and more effective than similar medicines on the market. Of course, the price was several times more expensive. She gradually found a problem. Everything in the medicine box was from the Research Institute, not from the market. Did this mean that she could only use things from the Research Institute? Or, as long as it was from the Research Institute, she could use it? So far, there were only the medicines she needed and simple surgical supplies in the medicine box. There were no instruments for the time being. Otherwise, she would be able to operate on Gu Yan. Gu Jiao put the anti-inflammatory medicine and cough syrup in separate porcelain bottles and gave a small spoon of 10 milliliters. Syrup 3 times a day, 1 spoon each time. Pills 2 times a day, 2 pills each time. Take it after meals. She paused and looked at the sky. Can I drink it once now? Have you eaten? This sentence woke her up. Today, she was so focused on treating her son that she even forgot to give him breakfast. Of course, it was not that she didn't prepare it, but when she took it out, didn't want to eat it. So she put aside and planned to eat it later. But after a while, he got on the carriage and came to the clinic. It was almost noon now, but the child didn't drink a sip of water. Princess Yu looked at her son guiltily. Are you hungry? It's all my fault. I forgot that you didn't eat breakfast. Ming-er was sick and had a bad appetite, so he didn't feel hungry. But Princess Yu didn't want to delay and canceled the idea of going back immediately. There would be no one there. At this time, Prince Yu must be quarreling with the ministers of Zhao country in the palace. Princess Yu brought her son back to the side room of the clinic and ordered the servants to buy some delicious snacks. When she learned that there was a chef in the clinic, she gave the chef money to prepare some food. After eating, Ming-er drank the medicine and fell asleep. Princess Yu didn't disturb him and let him sleep. Unknowingly, it was afternoon. After the elementary school of the Imperial College, Lu Quan went to pick up little Jing Kong and sent him to the clinic. After that, Lu Quan went to the Qinghe Academy to pick up Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshun to learn from Master Lu. Little Jing Kong squatted on the sand in the backyard of the clinic and taught little Jiang Li how to write with a bamboo stick. Jiang, this is your Jiang, and this is Li. Then how do you write my brother's name? Jiang is the same as you. Shi is like this. Little Jing Kong wrote a big shi on the sand. There was no sand in the backyard. Little Jing Kong wanted to play, so Gu Jiao got a pile of sand for him. Little Jiang Li wrote his brother's name seriously. His brother's name was easy, and he wrote it quickly, but hers was difficult. Little Jing Kong was a smart child, but he was not an experienced teacher. Although he often checked Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoxuan's homework, he always became angry halfway through teaching. It was the same for teaching little Jiang Li. Little Jiang Li could never learn, so he became a little pufferfish again. He was a gentlemanly pufferfish. He could not get angry at the little girl, so he could only sulk behind a big tree. Ah, I'm so anxious. Princess Yu went to the kitchen. On the way back to the room, she saw a little bean under the big tree baring his fangs and brandishing his claws. That little bean was very cute. His little head was round, his face was red, his eyes were black and bright, and his eyelashes were long and curly. The way he waved his little fists was really amusing. Princess Yu's heart trembled when she saw how cute he was. Digression, it's the last day of the double event. Don't waste your monthly votes. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. You can find all the novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/113149480. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com that you're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.